Given the severe nature of the incident, and the fact that Leo had avoided significant head trauma, the two officers conducting his statement had a lot of questions, all of them painstakingly detailed. Leo remained subdued throughout the entire process, his mind a dull fog. He answered what they asked, nothing more. It wasn't until the very end, when an officer asked who he thought might have hired the hitman, that Leo's focus sharpened. Sharon Thornton's name surfaced in his mind like a phantom, and a cold fire ignited in his chest. If it weren't for that woman, Miles would still be alive. He didn't hide it. He told them everything. After the police left, Isabelle slipped back into the room, carrying a tray with dinner. Only then did Leo realize that what he'd mistaken for dusk, when he woke up, was now the deep black of night. The clock on the wall read 9:15 p.m. He'd been unconscious for 6 days. That meant today was May 7th. The Memorial Day weekend had been over for 2 days. His arm was useless, so Isabelle sat beside him, holding a bowl of soup. She gently spooned a mouthful, blew on it until it was just warm, and brought it to his lips. "You haven't eaten real food in days, just 4 drips. Go slow." Her movements were tender, her eyes filled with a profound ache as she watched him, as if he were a priceless, fragile treasure. Leo tilted his head back mechanically and opened his mouth. The warmth of the soup slid down his throat, but did nothing to thaw the ice around his heart. The thought of Miles made his eyes burn again. He robotically accepted another spoonful, and another, chewing without tasting. Maybe the soup was bland, or maybe he just had no appetite for anything, ever again. Isabelle seemed to read his mind. "Leo, don't blame yourself," she whispered. "This wasn't your fault. The most important thing now is for you to get better. If you fall apart, Miles, he would be heartbroken to know that." She set the bowl down and gently wiped a tear from the corner of his eye, her touch a small, warm comfort. "They caught all 4 of them," she continued softly. "They never even got away. Their records came up fast, they all had priors, and the names they gave us were fake. After the police took our statements, they immediately started investigating Sharon. She must have gotten a tip because she vanished. But there's a federal warrant out for her arrest. They'll find her." Leo looked up, his eyes bloodshot, his voice thick with hatred. "For someone like Sharon, a trial is a mercy she doesn't deserve. It can't end that simply for her." Isabelle knew the depth of his rage. She felt it too. But there was nothing more she could do. Leo saw the fear flicker in her eyes and forced himself to relax his expression, managing a faint, grim smile. "Don't worry. I'm just talking. What goes around comes around." He said the words, but his mind was already turning. Sharon being on the run was a gift. It gave him an opportunity to get justice for Miles his own way. He looked at Isabelle, a wave of guilt washing over him. She must have been through hell these past 6 days, sitting by his bedside. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I made you worry." Her nose tingled as she fought back tears, her voice cracking. "I'm the one who should be sorry. I told you, I beg you not to put yourself in danger for me, and you still." She couldn't finish, her gaze fixed on the thick bandages wrapping his arm and left leg. It wasn't the legendary 3 cuts, 6 holes, but it was 2 cuts and 4 holes. The thought that those 4 wounds would leave permanent scars on his body was too much. The tears she'd been holding back finally began to fall, fat and silent. If it weren't for Leo and Miles, she would be dead. Miles! He had given his life to protect her. Not wanting to drag Leo further into despair, she quickly wiped her eyes and forced a smile. "Leo, while you were out, the investigation into my father's case was officially closed. The feds cleared him 3 days ago. He came to see you, you know. I just called him a little while ago. He might stop by tonight. Your dad's coming?" Leo said, his voice flat. Before, even if he were sick, the knowledge that he was about to see Isabelle's father would have sent him into a panic, trying to make himself look as presentable as possible. Now, he couldn't summon the energy to care. He couldn't even bring himself to ask if Miles's grandparents had been told, or how the funeral had been handled. Sensing he didn't want to talk, Isabelle finished feeding him and then sat quietly by his side, holding his hand. Just then, a soft knock came at the door. Knock, knock, knock. The door opened, and Kevin Tion walked in, with Clara Tion beside him. Kevin was carrying a fruit basket, his face etched with exhaustion. But what caught Leo's eye and twisted his gut was the small white flower pinned to Kevin's shirt. For Miles. Seeing Leo awake and lucid, the tension in Kevin's face eased slightly. He managed a strained smile. "Leo, Isabelle told me you were up. I brought Clara to come see you." "Yeah, I'm okay," Leo said, forcing a smile of his own. "You didn't have to bring anything, man. You know you don't have to do that stuff with me." Clara offered a few words of concern. Isabelle, understanding the moment, gently led her out of the room, giving Leo and Kevin some space. The moment the door clicked shut, Kevin sniffled, then slammed his fist against the wall. The tears he'd been holding back finally broke free. Damn it, he choked out. I've spent all this time, all this training becoming a runner, and when my brother needed me most, I wasn't fast enough to get to him. Leo, do you have any idea? He said, his voice raw. When you were unconscious, I finally got there and saw him. Saw Miles lying in a pool of his own blood. I hate myself. If I had just run a little faster that day, just a little bit faster, maybe I could have gotten there in time to help him. Maybe he wouldn't have died. Leo looked at Kevin's bloodshot eyes, his throat feeling like it was stuffed with ice-soaked cotton. He struggled to sit up, a sharp intake of breath hissing through his teeth as the movement pulled at his wounds. He stubbornly reached out with his good arm and clapped Kevin on his trembling shoulder. It's not your fault. Nobody could have seen this coming. How is it not my fault? Kevin roared, his voice cracking in the sterile room. I should have taken the same path as you. Then I would have been right there with him. He sank to the floor, burying his face in his hands, his knuckles white from gripping his hair. You don't know. I had to tell his grandparents. They couldn't believe it. He was sobbing now, his whole body shaking. He was just 19, man. He was only 19. Author's note. We're less than a month from the finale. Some plot lines will be wrapped up in the epilogue. And yes, Sharon will get what's coming to her before then. Please send gifts. He was only 19. Seeing Kevin consumed by regret, Leo felt a lump form in his own throat. They were both a year older than Miles. As his brothers, they were supposed to be the older ones, the ones who looked out for him. But when the danger came, it was the youngest of them who had stood at the front. After a long while, Kevin wiped his tears with his forearm and slumped onto the edge of Leo's bed. He spoke in a low voice. Miles's funeral was today. The only family he had, there were his grandparents, so my parents and I handled everything. Rex was a true friend, too. I was going to pay for everything, give Miles a proper send-off, let him leave with dignity. But Rex insisted on covering it all. He called everyone who was on the trip to come pay their respects. Everyone was devastated. He paused, his voice thick. But I insisted on picking the cemetery plot myself. It's a nice place, peaceful. Leo, when you get out of here, we'll go see him together. Leo nodded firmly, the image of Miles's last moments seared into his memory. Kevin's jaw tightened, veins standing out on his forehead. That bitch Sharon, he growled. The one who deserves to be dead most of all. And she got away. If I ever get my hands on her, I swear I'll make her join Miles. This time, Leo didn't argue. He just clenched his fists. A few minutes later, another knock came at the door. Isabelle peeked her head in. Leo, my dad's here to see you. Hearing that, Kevin immediately stood up. All right, Leo, I'm going to take Clara back to campus. You just focus on getting better. Don't worry about the company. Things are actually going great. Every department is running smoothly. The only people who know you're in the hospital are the ones who are on the trip. I didn't even tell Ruby or the others. But somehow, Sean Xiao heard about it and immediately tried to stage a takeover. He shook his head in disgust. Good thing Tion stepped in personally and shut him down. Sean is completely sidelined at the company now. If he wasn't technically the founder, Tion would have kicked him to the curb already. He then remembered something else. Oh, right. Tion came by to visit twice while you were out. So I told him you were awake. I gotta say, that guy is solid. He's just an investor in Starfall Media. Not really a personal friend, but he still came to see you twice. Meanwhile, Sean Xiao, the guy who hates you just because you made the right call for the company, doesn't even bother to check on you. Instead, he uses it as an opportunity to seize power. Sean Xiao. Leo's expression darkened. It was obvious how Sean had found out. He'd heard it from Sharon, which meant Sean knew exactly what Sharon had done to him. Yet he still chose that moment to try and reclaim the company. A cold smirk touched Leo's lips. Before, he had just wanted to push Sean out of the company, but he was still planning on giving him a fair buyout. After all, he was the founder. Without Sean, there would be no Starfall, and Leo would never have had the chance to build it into what it was becoming. But now, if Sean was going to act like this, Leo was done being patient. Besides, he was on the same side as Sharon, and the enemy of his enemy's friend was his enemy. Leo wasn't going to hold back anymore. I got it. I'll handle it, Leo said. Go on, get Clara back to campus. It's late. After Kevin left, Richard Thornton walked in. On his way out, Kevin nodded respectfully. Mr. Thornton. Richard entered the room, his gaze lingering on Leo's bandaged body. For the first time, a flicker of guilt crossed his famously arrogant face. He looked much better than the last time Leo and Isabelle had seen him at the detention center. The haggard, defeated man was gone, replaced by his usual commanding presence. But something had changed. The sharp edge of his pride had been smoothed away. Leo managed a weak smile. Mr. Thornton. He tried to sit up, but Richard gently pressed him back down. Don't move. Just lie still. Richard walked slowly to the chair beside the bed and sat down, his voice low and raspy. You've been through a lot, Leo. I brought in specialists from New York, experts in wound care and scar revision. They'll do everything they can to minimize the scarring. It's okay, sir. A few scars don't matter, Leo said. I'm sorry, Mr. Thornton. I promised you I'd protect Isabelle, but I failed. She almost. Richard held up a hand, cutting him off with a deep sigh. This isn't on you. I suspected Sharon might hire someone to go after Isabelle, but I never imagined she would stoop to this. Hiring killers to take my daughter's life. He looked pained. I heard about what happened to Miles. If it wasn't for him, Isabelle, that poor kid, such a hard life, gone before he even turned 20. A tragedy. Richard pulled a check from his pocket and placed it on the table by Leo's pillow. This is for his family. I had Lester take me to their home, but his grandparents refused to accept it. I thought maybe they would take it from you. Money can't bring the boy back, but it can at least ensure his grandparents live comfortably. Think of it. Think of it as my way of repaying the kid. His voice was filled with genuine regret. It was clear this wasn't just about throwing money at a problem. If there were another way, Leo believed the new Richard Thornton would do anything to make it right. Leo's throat tightened. Mr. Thornton, on behalf of Miles, thank you. But they don't need the money. I'll take care of his grandparents. Richard opened his mouth, then closed it, sighing again as a flicker of pain crossed his face. If it weren't for my problems, you and Isabelle wouldn't have been dragged into this disaster. And that boy, Miles, he wouldn't have had to sacrifice himself. His voice trailed off, and he rubbed his temples hard. The room fell silent, the only sound the distant squeak of a nurse's cart in the hallway. After a long moment, Richard's expression hardened, and he clenched his fist. Richard Thornton, was blind. To let a monster like Sharon sleep next to me for all those years. She could have my company, I don't care. But she tried to take my daughter's life. She lost her mind. His voice dropped to a low growl. It's not just the police looking for her now. I have my own people out there. And when they find her, I will stop at nothing to make her pay. Watching Richard Thornton, his face a mask of restrained fury, Leo couldn't help but feel a sense of irony. If he had cared for Isabelle this much when she was a little girl, he never would have brought a woman like Sharon into their home. Or if he had, he would have noticed how she treated his daughter and ended things long before it came to this. Objectively, Richard himself was the architect of this entire tragedy. Then again, if not for Richard's neglect, Leo knew he never would have met Isabelle, never would have had the chance to fall in love with her. So, to place the blame for Miles's death solely on Richard's shoulders wasn't entirely fair. Leo himself bore a share of the responsibility. If he hadn't been with Isabelle, if he hadn't recommended Miles to Lester as her bodyguard, if there were too many what-ifs, each one a branching path leading to a completely different reality. And at this point, regret was useless. Lost in thought, Leo had almost forgotten Richard was still in the room. Richard stood and placed a gentle hand on Leo's shoulder. All right, get some rest. You only just woke up. Don't overexert yourself. Put work on the back burner for now. Your health is the priority. He paused, a look of admiration in his eyes. I heard what you did for Isabelle, stabbing yourself twice. You kept your promise to me. You would protect her with your life. From now on, I can entrust her to you without any reservations. I hope you'll always cherish her, as you do now. He gave a self-deprecating smile. I know I might not have the right to say that, but as her father, I have to. Leo looked up, meeting Richard's complex gaze. His throat felt tight. He managed to force out a single sentence. Mr. Thornton, you have my word. I will. Richard gave him a long, searching look, then turned to leave before stopping abruptly. He pulled an envelope from the inner pocket of his suit jacket and placed it on the bedside table. This is a stock transfer agreement for Thornton Industries. It's not a huge percentage. The federal investigation still had some negative fallout on the company, so I can't arrange for more at the moment. But I don't think the amount matters. If you and Isabelle stay together, you'll eventually take over all my resources anyway. Consider this. A part of Isabelle's inheritance, a wedding gift from me. Leo's eyes widened. Mr. Thornton, this is too much. I'm not with Isabelle for... I know, Richard, come off. I know your character. And your company, Starfall Media, may one day be even bigger than Thornton Industries. To you, these shares might not mean much. But this is something I owe you. If it weren't for me, Miles wouldn't have died, and you and Isabelle wouldn't have been hurt. Think of this as my compensation to you, and as my seal of approval. His voice softened, his face clouded by a deep-seated weariness. From now on, just be good to Isabelle. It's what she wants, it's what I want, and it's what her mother would have wanted most of all. Leo tried to refuse again, but Richard simply waved his hand and strode out of the room. Outside, Isabelle was on her toes, peering into the room. When she saw her father emerge, she hurried over. Richard raised his hand, an instinctual gesture to pat her head as he had when she was a little girl. But as his hand rose, Isabelle flinched back. Realizing what she'd done, she bit her lip and stepped forward again, lowering her head slightly. Richard's hand froze in midair. He looked stunned. Since Sharon had entered their lives, he had never shown his daughter this kind of affection, only a stern and unforgiving coldness. Though the ice between them had begun to thaw, the chasm of the last decade remained. His hand slowly fell to his side, the cuff of his suit gleaming under the harsh hospital lights. He stared at the top of his daughter's head and suddenly remembered a little girl in pigtails who would leap into his arms, smearing his suit with a frosting-covered cheek while chirping, "Daddy." Richard's throat worked. He finally pulled his hand back completely, a bitter smile on his face. "Isabelle, you stay here and keep Leo company. I'm heading home." Isabelle bit her lip. "I'll walk you out." She followed her father, her sprained ankle, though no longer swollen, still sending dull aches up her leg with each step. At the elevator, she pushed the call button for him. While they waited, she caught a glimpse of the silver at his temples and felt a pang of sadness. "Dad," she said suddenly, her voice as light as a feather. "Leo won't accept those shares." The elevator arrived with a ding. Richard paused at the threshold, not surprised his daughter had overheard their conversation. It was easy to guess she'd been listening at the door, worried he might say something to upset Leo. A wistful look crossed his face. He sighed. "I know I missed your childhood. Even with Sharon gone, I know you still can't fully accept me. It's okay. I won't interfere in your life with Leo. But if you ever want to see your father, you can always come home. And this time, if you come home, I promise I'll be there." Hearing the raw emotion in his voice, Isabelle sniffled. She summoned her courage and looked him straight in the eye. "Dad, back then, why did you?" Before she could finish, Richard had turned away, his posture seeming to crumple in an instant. "Because I was a fool." His voice was hard, metallic, but it softened when he saw her wide, questioning eyes. "After your mother passed away, I just gave up. I completely ignored the fact that I still had you. I was only thinking about my own pain, never about yours. That's why I brought Sharon home. And when she said you needed a firmer hand, I didn't question it." His sharp eyes, for the first time in years, glistened with tears. A wave of failure and self-loathing washed over him. "And now, when I finally look back, you don't need your father anymore." After seeing her father off, Isabelle stood in the hospital corridor for a long moment before returning to the room. When she pushed the door open, Leo was still staring out the window at the night sky, his eyes filled with an unreadable emotion. Miles's death had hit him harder than anything. Isabelle poured a glass of warm water and handed it to him. "Leo, drink this and then get some rest. You have a lot of injuries. The doctor said you need to recover." Leo tore his gaze from the window and smiled at her. "It's okay. I was out for so long. I'm not tired at all. The injuries are just on my arms and legs. I feel fine mentally. Then I'll sit with you, or we could watch a movie on my phone." Seeing her cautious expression, Leo chuckled. "You don't have to be so careful, like you're handling a little kid. Miles is gone. There's no point in me staying miserable. What I need to do is heal up and get back on my feet as fast as possible. Sharon is still out there. Once I'm better, I'm going to get involved. For you, and for Miles, I have to see her brought to justice with my own eyes." His tone was no longer charged with rage. Instead, it was eerily calm. Leo didn't know if this was what it felt like to grow up overnight. But he knew, with chilling certainty, that if the price of growing up was Miles's life, he would have chosen to stay a boy forever. Isabelle gently took his hand. Her fingertips were cool, but the contact sent a small warmth through him. She looked at the shadows that still lingered in his eyes, her voice laced with pain. "I'm with you. Whatever you do." The only sounds were the distant squeak of a nurse's cart and the ping of the elevator, starkly clear in the quiet of the night. Neither of them spoke for a long time. She just rested her head on his uninjured shoulder. Moonlight streamed through the window, painting silver patterns on the floor. After a while, Isabelle spoke again, her voice soft. "Leo, about the stock transfer my dad gave you. If you don't want it, I can get it back to him." But Leo shook his head. "No, I'm going to accept it." "What?" She lifted her head, her expression one of pure shock. Knowing Leo, with his pride and fierce independence, she was certain he would have refused it without a second thought. But he was agreeing to it. For a moment, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Anticipating her reaction, Leo raised his arm and gently squeezed her shoulder. "Surprised? Before, you're right, I would have refused. I always thought the gap between us was something I had to close on my own, not with a handout. But now, we're past the point of keeping score. Besides, this is your dad's way of giving me his blessing. If I refuse, from his perspective, it might feel like I don't fully trust him, or that I don't fully see you as my family. So, I think if I accept it, your dad will be at ease, and you'll feel more secure. Isabelle stared at him, the moonlight tracing the sharp line of his jaw. The invisible walls and worries that had stood between them for so long seemed to crumble in the wake of his simple words. She suddenly remembered the silver in her father's hair as he stood by the elevator, his lonely silhouette as the doors closed. Her eyes began to sting. She buried her face in the crook of his neck, her voice muffled but sweet. "Leo, I love you." In a safe house somewhere on the north side of Crestview, Jonathan stood before Sharon Thornton. Her face was a mask of fury. While she wasn't disheveled, the anxiety in her eyes was palpable. "Ma'am, the police and the feds are looking for you everywhere," Jonathan said. "All my usual channels for getting you out of the country have gone silent." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "And from what I can tell, Richard Thornton has his own people searching. If you show your face anywhere, you'll be found. We need to wait until things cool down before I can find a new way to get you overseas." Sharon's fists clenched. She shot him a venomous look. "Didn't you tell me those men were professionals? That they couldn't possibly fail?" Not only did they fail, but all four of them ended up dead. Their failure not only cost me my leverage against Richard, but now I have a federal warrant out for my arrest. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I never thought they would mess it up. They even had a gun and still—" Jonathan trailed off. He was just as baffled. Frank Bishop and his crew had acquired a firearm, and they still couldn't complete the job, only managing to kill some irrelevant college kid. Jonathan thought that if he'd known this would be the outcome, he never would have entrusted the job to them. Their failure had not only made Sharon a fugitive, but it meant he couldn't show his face in public either. To avoid prosecution, he had to leave the country with her. But he glanced at Sharon. He'd worked for her long enough to know exactly where he stood. Her shoulders trembled with rage. "I knew it. None of you are reliable. In the end, I have to do everything myself," she spat. "I'll contact Victor. He'll arrange for me to get out of the country. As for you, do you want to come with me? The way things are, the second you step outside, you'll be arrested." Jonathan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Ma'am, you take me with you." "Don't think I'm that heartless," Sharon said coolly. "I can abandon the others, but not you. If you want to come, get your affairs in order. We'll leave together, and we won't be coming back." She spoke casually, but inwardly, she sneered. "Jonathan knows everything. If I leave and he gets caught, he'll spill every last secret. If he's not caught, I'll only ever be a suspect, and they'll never be able to prove most of the charges. Then I'll be free and clear overseas." Jonathan nodded vigorously, his voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you, ma'am." "Of course. Don't mention it, Jonathan," Sharon said, her eyes narrowing. "You've always been the one I can trust most." She walked to the window, a hateful glint in her eye. "Leo Yeager, Isabelle Thornton, once I'm settled abroad, you will pay for this." The next morning, Leo woke to find Isabelle already awake. She was sitting on the visitor's cot, hugging her knees, peacefully watching the sparrows flitting about in the lush green tree outside the window. Leo glanced at the wall clock. It was only 8 in the morning. "You're up early," he said. Isabelle turned, a lovely smile gracing her lips. "Well, so are you. I slept for 6 days straight. The fact that I managed to sleep from midnight to 8 is a miracle." "Oh." She hopped off the cot, made the bed, and disappeared into the bathroom. A moment later, she emerged with a warm washcloth and a toothbrush. "Okay, sit up. Time to wash your face." Leo blinked. He realized that for the past week, while he was unconscious, she must have been the one taking care of him, without even hiring a nurse. A profound warmth spread through his chest. Isabelle Thornton, heiress to a fortune. Who would ever imagine a girl like her humbling herself to care for a boy like this? After she gently wiped his face, she narrowed her eyes and said in a cool, commanding tone, "Open up. I'm brushing your teeth." You don't have to do that. My right hand is fine. I can do it myself." But she pouted insistent. "You're not moving. Sit still and let me do it. What if you brush too hard and pull a stitch?" She reached out and patted his head as if he were a child. "Be a good boy, Leo. Listen to me." A strange expression crossed Leo's face. Her tone was exactly like a character from some old Saturday morning cartoon. The one who could turn people into idiots with a single head pat. She stuck the toothbrush in his mouth and began brushing with gentle, careful motions. Once he was cleaned up, she tied her long hair back. "I'm going to go borrow a wheelchair. I'm taking you out for breakfast. The sun is beautiful today. After we eat, we can go to the park across the street. You haven't felt the sun or breathed fresh air in a week. Are you sure the doctor is okay with me going out? Isabelle's eyes twinkled mischievously. Don't worry. We'll sneak out. She disappeared and returned a minute later with a wheelchair, carefully helping Leo into it. Then she peeked her head out of the room, scanning the hallway. Seeing no doctors or nurses, she grabbed the handles and exclaimed with a burst of excitement, "Let's go." She wheeled him out of the room, then out of the hospital, pushing him in a near run as if he weren't injured at all, until they arrived at a small breakfast diner that smelled of fried dough and coffee. Feeling the warm sun on his face, Leo instinctively shielded his eyes, then took a deep, cleansing breath of air, free of the scent of antiseptic. He took another, and then another. The feeling of having survived, the feeling that should have hit him the moment he woke up, finally washed over him. He was dazed for a moment, then looked at Isabelle's exhilarated face and burst out laughing. Isabelle tilted her chin up. "What are you laughing at? I just feel like it." Leo wasn't an idiot. He knew how much she cared about his health, how worried she was about his injuries. She would have already cleared this with his doctor. Without a doctor's permission, she would never risk his well-being. The cheerful, carefree act was all for him. She was trying to pull him out of the darkness that had settled after Miles's death. "I'll get you 3 glazed donuts," she said. "I've been eating here every morning while you were out. The donuts are great, but the coffee is a little bitter. 3 should be perfect for you." Leo nodded. "Whatever you say." She was right. The donuts were warm and sweet, the coffee strong. Leo, suddenly ravenous, took a massive bite, chewing enthusiastically. "Not bad. The campus queen has good taste in food. This is almost as good as that greasy barbecue from the food truck." Isabelle grabbed a napkin and wiped the crumbs he'd sprayed on her face, giving him a weary look. "Leo, can you please not talk with your mouth full? You're getting it all over me." Shorty. Won't happen again." He immediately took another huge bite. The other patrons in the diner glanced over at the man in the wheelchair who was devouring his food like a starved animal. In a diner next to a hospital, where most customers were either patients or worried family members with no appetite, Leo was an anomaly. He didn't care. He ate with gusto, and after finishing, he patted his stomach contentedly. Isabelle had just finished her first donut. She was chewing slowly when she noticed he was done. "Are you still hungry?" she asked quietly. "You can have the rest of mine. I can't finish it all. Do you leave half a donut every morning?" At his question, she looked down and said nothing. Leo figured she was blushing. He smiled. "Wasting food is a bad habit. But don't worry. From now on, I'll finish whatever you can't." "Okay." He took the remaining half of her donut and finished it in 2 bites. He patted the arm of the wheelchair. "I guess I've officially become what Kevin was joking about. A man with a brilliant mind and paralyzed limbs." "Don't say that. Your leg will heal. The wheelchair is only temporary," she snapped, glaring at him. After she finished eating, she went to the counter to pay. Just then, a bald-headed old man who had been sitting at the table next to them walked over, his hands clasped behind his back. He squinted at Leo, clapped him on the shoulder, and said with a knowing tone, "Young man, I bet you were in a coma for a few days and just woke up yesterday, didn't you?" Leo's body went rigid. After the attack on the mountain, he was on edge around strangers. "How did you know that? How did you know that?" Seeing Leo's reaction, the old man chuckled. "Relax, son. I'm not a bad guy. It's just that young lady you're with. She's been in here every morning for the last week. What does that have to do with you knowing I was in a coma? Because every single morning, that girl would sit right there and cry, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. How was she supposed to finish that last half of her donut? But when I saw you with her today, it all clicked. She was crying for you, son, afraid you were never going to wake up. Now that you have, the tears are gone." Leo's fingers dug into the armrests of his wheelchair. The cold metal was nothing compared to the searing heat that flooded his chest. He looked over at the counter where Isabelle was paying. Her ponytail swayed as she moved, her silhouette so light it seemed impossible that any shadow had ever touched it. But the old man's words were like needles, piercing tiny holes in his heart, and all the tears Isabelle had hidden behind her smiles now came flooding through. The old man left. Leo sat there, stunned. Then he noticed the name of the diner, painted on the window in faded letters, the Wishing Well Diner. In an instant, he understood. He knew why she came here every single morning. His nose stung, and a hot tear he couldn't stop fell from his eye, splashing into the empty coffee cup. No wonder she said the coffee was bitter. After leaving the Wishing Well Diner, Isabelle pushed Leo across the street to the park. It was still early, so the park was filled with seniors doing their morning exercises and people walking their dogs. As she pushed his wheelchair along the path, she said, "I let everyone who is worried know that you're awake. After 10, you'll probably have a lot of visitors, so we should head back before then. Leo's throat felt tight. He rubbed his face, then looked up at her, at that face so perfect it was almost unreal. His eyes started to burn again. Isabelle met his reddened gaze and stopped short. "Leo, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with panic. She knelt down, her fingers hovering near his cheek, afraid to touch him. "Did you pull something? Is it the pain? I'll call the doctor right now." She fumbled in her pocket for her phone, thinking his wounds had reopened. "No." He caught her wrist, his palm, so warm it made her flinch. "I was just thinking, those days I was unconscious. You must have been so scared." Her eyelashes fluttered. She looked away, forcing a laugh. "Of course not. I knew you'd wake up. Why would I? The diner is called the Wishing Well." "I saw it," he interrupted, his gaze fixed on her. "You went there every morning. You must have overheard someone in the hospital say that if you make a wish there, it comes true. So you went every day to wish for me to wake up. And you sat there crying the whole time." The world went quiet, the only sound the rustle of sparrows in the trees. Isabelle kept her head down, her hair hiding the blush that crept up her neck. After a long moment, she mumbled, "You figured it out." "So the coffee wasn't bitter," he said, gently brushing her hair from her face. His thumb stroked her cheek, finding a lingering trace of a tear. "It was salty." "You're an idiot," he whispered. "If wishes could cure people, there wouldn't be any patience in the world." She looked up, her eyes brimming with fresh tears. She pouted, her voice thick with misery. "But when you were unconscious, the heart monitor just kept beeping, and I was so afraid that the next beep would be the last one, that would just go flat. I didn't dare leave the room, not even for a second. I was terrified I'd turn around and you'd be gone." Her voice cracked. "I'm not the idiot. You are. You're the one who stabbed yourself twice." Leo grinned through his pain. "Well, if I hadn't, we'd both be dead right now." "Don't you dare say that word. Spit 3 times right now." "Tui, tui, tui." Just before 10, Isabelle wheeled Leo back to his room. And just as she predicted, not long after they arrived, Rex Gao, Felix Foam, and Ned Neo showed up. Seeing Leo awake, Rex tilted his head back, forcing his tears to stay put. Even so, he started cursing immediately. "Damn it, Jaeger, you son of a bitch, you scared the hell out of me. You're one lucky bastard, stabbing yourself twice and still being alive. It's a freaking medical miracle. TSK. Most people bring flowers and say nice things. You just bring a string of profanities," Leo retorted. Felix and Ned started unloading the gifts they'd brought onto the table. "Actually, Leo," Felix said, "Rex was the most worried out of all of us. Any day he didn't have class, he was driving to some church to light a candle, praying for you to wake up. He's donated a small fortune in the last week." Ned nodded in agreement. Their unfiltered honesty made Rex's face turn bright red. Hey, shut up, you two. You talk too much." Leo wasn't surprised to see Rex get flustered. After everything they'd been through together, he knew who Rex really was. A spoiled rich kid, sure, but a loyal friend to the very end. He didn't say much, just gave Rex a grateful look. Then he turned to Ned. "Ned, that folding knife of yours. It saved our lives. Bringing those things was the smartest move ever." Ned grinned and scratched the back of his head. "That's what I thought, too." They chatted for a while before the 3 of them had to head back to campus. With the incident over the holiday weekend, the university had tightened its policies, and they had to get special permission from their advisor just to be off campus. After them came a stream of other students who had been on the trip, like Ronan Fawn. It was 1 in the afternoon before Leo had seen everyone. Just as he and Isabelle were about to have lunch, Tion, the chairman of Chatterty, appeared at the door with his executive assistant, Felicia Foam. "Mr. Xia." Felicia. Leo was genuinely surprised to see them. Kevin had told him yesterday that Tion had already visited twice while he was unconscious. Leo had planned on personally thanking him after being discharged. After all, the only people who had visited him repeatedly were his closest friends, like Kevin and Rex. Tion was just a business partner, and a new one at that. There was no professional or personal reason for him to show this level of concern. Furthermore, their business relationship was far from equal. Tion was in a completely different league. He had no reason to care this much. So, when Leo saw him again, he was completely taken aback. His mind immediately jumped to the conclusion that Tion must want something from him. He quickly put on a welcoming smile. "Mr. Xia, I heard you already came to visit me twice while I was out. I can't believe you came again today. I'm truly honored." As he spoke, he started to sit up. Felicia instinctively moved to help him, but stopped when she saw Isabelle standing nearby. She pulled her foot back. Tion was much more relaxed. He strolled in with his hands in his pockets and grinned. "We're not just partners, we're friends. I know that might sound weird, since we've only met once for business. But honestly, since I founded Chatterty, all I've dealt with are a bunch of old dinosaurs. Being young myself, it's always felt off. It's a relief to finally meet a partner like you, someone my own age. I'd really like for us to be good friends. Leo was stunned. Tion's reasoning was a little thin, but when he put himself in Tion's shoes, it started to make sense. He was right. There weren't many young CEOs running major companies, and the ones who ran businesses too small to ever cross paths with someone like Tion. His days were filled with meetings with men in their 40s and 50s. The generational gap must have been grating. Leo was touched. He nodded. If you're willing to be my friend, mister. Yeah, it would be my... Stop. Tion interrupted. None of that honor stuff? If you talk to me like that, you're no different from the old stiffs, you know? Leo blinked, then gave an embarrassed laugh. Okay, my bad. That's better. By the way, did Kevin tell you? While you were in the hospital, Sean Xiao was doing everything he could at Starfall Media to try and reclaim his power. Yeah, Kevin told me. He said you were the one who stopped him. Tion laughed. Right. That's actually why I came today, to explain that in person. You might be thinking that if I can shut Sean down that easily, I could pose a threat to Starfall's future. Don't worry. I just don't think Sean Xiao is fit to lead the company. I invested in Starfall Media because of you, Leo. I'm not going to let him ruin it. Beyond that, without your express permission, neither I nor Chatterty will interfere in any way. I trust you, Tion. You really don't have to explain. Seeing that Leo genuinely wasn't worried, Tion nodded. At that moment, Felicia turned to Isabelle. Miss Thornton, I heard your father has been completely cleared by the feds and is already back at work at Thornton Industries. Congratulations. Isabelle's brow furrowed slightly, but she replied politely, Thank you. Actually, Miss Thornton, we have a project at Chatterty that we'd love to collaborate on with Thornton Industries. If you have a moment, perhaps we could find a coffee shop and I could walk you through the proposal. Isabelle's first instinct was to say that with her father back, she was no longer handling any collaborations. But then she glanced at Tion, who was standing right there. He would know that perfectly well. It was obvious Felicia's collaboration was just a polite excuse to get her out of the room, to leave Leo and Tion alone to talk. She looked at Leo, a silent question in her eyes. Leo, realizing the same thing, gave her a subtle nod. And just like that, Isabelle and Felicia left the room. Now it was just Leo and Tion. Tion's expression immediately turned serious. He cleared his throat. Leo, I heard everything that happened on the mountain. I heard there was a gun involved. To be honest, I was shocked. I've been in similar situations myself, though nothing that extreme. That woman, Sharon, is ruthless. And now she's a wanted fugitive. Leo frowned, confused. Did Tion really send Isabelle away just to tell him this? Tion, I don't understand what you're getting at. Tion smiled knowingly. Right now, the police are looking for Sharon. The feds are looking for her. And I'm willing to bet Richard Thornton is spending a fortune to find her, too. You're just stuck in this hospital bed without the means to do it yourself. Otherwise, I imagine you'd be moving heaven and earth to find her, right? It's understandable. If I were you, I'd feel that Sharon's punishment should come from me. Leo didn't admit it directly. He answered evasively. You're overestimating me, Tion. If the police and the feds can't find her, what makes you think I could? Tion gave Leo a long, meaningful look. He paused for a couple of seconds, his voice dropping to a near whisper. What if I told you that Sharon is in Crestview right now? And what if I told you that I know her exact location and how she's planning to get out of the country? What if I told you that Sharon is in Crestview right now? And what if I told you that I know her exact location and how she's planning to get out of the country? Leo's pupils constricted. He leaned forward, his body tense. He stared at Tion, hardly daring to believe what he'd heard. Sharon was here? In Crestview? And Tion knew where. The news was like a bomb going off in the silent room, leaving Leo reeling. It wasn't until he saw the unwavering seriousness in Tion's eyes that he knew it wasn't a joke. Tion, are you telling the truth? Tion nodded. Of course. I wouldn't bring it up if I wasn't certain. Remember when I told you about Sharon's baby not being Richard's? I mentioned I knew a very good private investigator. He's the one who found her. He paused, his gaze intense. If you want to know, I'll tell you where she is, no strings attached. But you need to think this through. Once you know, you won't be able to let go. You'll be consumed with getting revenge. And you and I both know what form that revenge might take. Are you prepared for that? Are you willing to destroy everything you've built? Leo's mind raced. He thought for a few seconds, then looked up at Tion. Tion, if I do something reckless, I could ruin everything I have, including Starfall. From a business perspective, the safest thing for you to do is to never mention this to me at all. So why are you telling me? From a business perspective, you're right. I shouldn't be telling you this. If you do something rash, my investment in Starfall becomes my first ever failure. But I told you, I consider you a friend. And as a friend, now that I know the truth, I can't keep it from you. Seeing the sincerity on Tion's face, Leo was astonished. When Tion had first said he wanted to be friends, Leo had understood but remained skeptical. Now, he believed him completely. Tion was right. To protect his own interests, he should have stayed silent. If anything happened to Leo, Starfall Media would collapse, and his investment would become a laughingstock. Yet here he was. Leo thought for a moment, then looked up. Tion, where's she? Tion understood. Leo had made his choice. He sighed, took out his phone, and showed Leo a text message. Her location is all in there, he explained. Not too hard to find. But, for what I gather, she's desperately looking for a way out of the country. In her situation, if she gets caught by anyone, her life is over. If she makes it out this time, she'll never come back. You remember the baby's real father, Victor Yu? She'll go straight to him. Over the years, she's siphoned a fortune from Thornton Industries, funneling it overseas. It's obvious that money ended up in Victor's hands. She may have failed to take over the company, but she still made off with an astronomical sum. Fleeing the country? Leo frowned. But she can't fly, right? Not with a warrant out. Definitely not. In this day and age, once you're a wanted fugitive, you can't use any form of public transportation without being flagged instantly. It's almost certain she's planning to be smuggled over the border to a neighboring country, and then travel from there to her final destination. Tion added, the problem for her is she doesn't have the right connections. No one she knows will touch a job this hot. Leo's mind was a whirl. The fact that Tion, the chairman of a massive company, was speaking so candidly with him about these kinds of back-alley dealings was proof that he truly saw him as an equal. But he didn't have time to dwell on that now. An audacious plan began to form in his mind. He hesitated, then asked tentatively, is it possible for you to pull some strings and have Sharon unknowingly get in touch with one of those channels you mentioned? One that could get her over the border. You mean, you want to deliberately let her go? Tion raised an eyebrow, surprised. But then realization dawned, and his eyes widened slightly. He nodded, a slow, knowing smile spreading across his face. Yes, that could be arranged. Good, Leo said, his voice cold as ice. Then let her leave the country. Let her leave the country. Richard Thornton's face was grim as he gave the order to Lester. Half an hour ago, his team had reported back. They'd found Sharon's hiding place, and she was actively looking for an escape route. Richard's first impulse had been to go there himself, but a moment's thought stopped him. What could he really do if he went now? So, he made a decision. He would let her escape. He would even help her. Because once Sharon was out of the country, the things he could do were limitless. Lester stood before him, a rare look of gravity on his face. Sir, let me handle this. You and the young miss have only just reconciled. If something were to happen to you on this trip, she would be devastated. You've both come so far. Richard held up a hand, silencing him. This is something I have to do myself. If I'm still hesitating now, what's the difference between me now and the man I was before? This is my responsibility as a father. If there are consequences, I'll accept them. At least I will have finally fulfilled my duty. Besides, Isabelle is grown up now. After everything I've done, she stopped needing me a long time ago. She has Leo now. I can rest easy knowing he will take care of her. He paused and looked at Lester, his eyes filled with gratitude. Lester, thank you for all these years. I know there were many times you were more of a father to her than I was. You may not be related by blood, but you have long been a part of our family. How can I let you clean up a mess I made? Hearing Richard Thornton's words, Lester's shoulders trembled. His vision blurred. So the boss had known all along. And to hear him say he considered him family, it was too much. The first time he had heard those words was from Catherine Liu, Isabelle's mother, years ago. It was her kindness that had inspired his unwavering loyalty to Isabelle for all these years. That loyalty had, in turn, earned him Isabelle's trust, and she too had told him he was like family. He never thought, after all this time, he would hear the same words from the proud, arrogant Richard Thornton. Lester wiped the corner of his eye, his voice thick with emotion. Sir, to hear you say that, He took a deep breath to compose himself. Since your mind is made up, I will be by your side to see it through. Richard nodded, his gaze firm and cold. Good. Contact Sharon's channel. Make sure she doesn't suspect a thing. I want her to believe she's really getting away, that she's home free. She has no idea she's walking right in the trap I've set for her. He narrowed his eyes, a glint of steel in them. All those years, all the schemes she ran at Thornton Industries, and everything she did to Isabelle. This time, I'm settling the score. For everything. Sir, Lester warned, Once you start this, there's no turning back. Richard waved his hand dismissively, a weary look on his face. A way back? He'd lost that road a long, long time ago. Night fell. Tion had been gone for hours. Leo sat on his bed, staring out the window, lost in thought. A few minutes later, Isabelle returned with dinner. "Leo, time to eat." He pulled his gaze back from the window and looked at her, his expression softening. "What's on the menu tonight?" "Stir-fried noodles. I've noticed you have a thing for street food. Are all heiresses like you?" She blinked, then lifted her chin defiantly. "Are other heiresses your girlfriend?" "Definitely not." "Well, there you go. Only your heiress likes street food." She huffed playfully, then brought the bowl to his mouth. "Okay, open up." Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He never thought he'd be so helpless that he'd need Isabelle to feed him. But he'd gotten over the initial awkwardness and now accepted it without protest. His mindset had shifted. After dinner, he asked the doctor when he could be discharged. The doctor said another week should do it. Since the injuries were all superficial, with no broken bones, he could leave as soon as the wounds had scabbed over. But he'd still need to take it easy for at least a few months to let the muscles and tendons fully heal. Isabelle immediately grew anxious, her voice rising. "Leo, why are you in such a hurry to leave? You're not healed yet. It's fine, they're just surface wounds. I can't stand being in the hospital. The room is so small, and everywhere I look, there are sick people. It's depressing. I want to get out, maybe go to the office, watch a movie with you, go to the Grove for some lip service." Isabelle froze, her face flushing a brilliant red. She shot him a look. "You're in this state, and you're still thinking about the Grove." "Heh." He grinned. "Aren't you? So let's get out of here. I'm sick of this place. Recovering at home is no different from recovering here. But, no buts. I'm leaving in a week. I really can't stay here any longer." Isabelle pouted, hesitating for a long moment before finally nodding reluctantly. "Fine, but you have to come stay at the Thornton estate with me. There are more staff there. They could take good care of you. If you don't agree to that, you're not leaving early. Deal. As long as it's not a hospital, I'll stay anywhere." Over the next week, Leo diligently took his medication and allowed his wounds to be treated, cooperating fully with the doctors. He had his secretary, Aiden Kane, come to the hospital daily to report on work and receive his instructions. Even without Leo physically present, Starfall continued to run like a well-oiled machine. Leo wasn't naive. He knew that even if Tion genuinely considered him a friend, he couldn't just take without giving back. Tion had helped him twice now with crucial information. First about Sharon's baby, which had been the key to convincing Richard Thornton of her treachery, and now with her location. Without Tion, none of this would be possible. So over the next few days, Leo made his move. He had Aiden and Kevin, with the help of Rex's father, Harrison Gao, apply pressure from all sides. In a swift and brutal corporate maneuver, they forced Ruby Yu and the other shareholders to vote, compelling Sean Shao to sell his remaining shares. Then, without a shred of sentiment, they kicked him out of Starfall. Ruby and the others, unaware of the deep-seated feud between Leo and Sharon, or Sean's connection to her, were baffled. They assumed Leo was still holding a grudge from their last conflict and tried to plead Sean's case. Leo refused to even see them. He was merciless. As for Sean's shares, Leo had Aiden immediately draw up the paperwork and transferred them to Chatter T, increasing Tion's stake in the company. Tion had never asked for anything, but Leo understood. Friendship was a two-way street. Sean Shao was completely blindsided. He went berserk, trying desperately to get a meeting with Leo, but Leo wouldn't even give him the time of day. 7 days later, Leo was discharged from the hospital. As Lester pushed his wheelchair out the front doors, he took a deep, satisfying breath of fresh air. Out of Isabelle's line of sight, a resolute look hardened his eyes. Right about now, he thought, Sharon should be getting ready to leave the country. The day Leo was discharged from the hospital was a spectacle. A full motorcade was waiting for him at the entrance. As he hobbled out on crutches, he froze, completely dumbfounded. A fleet of identical black Maybachs lined the curb, each one flanked by a bodyguard in a black suit and sunglasses. They were all built like linebackers. If you ignore their faces, they could have passed for male models at a nightclub. Even with his thick skin, Leo felt a hot flush of embarrassment creep up his neck. He shot an awkward glance at Isabelle. It's just a hospital discharge. Isn't this a little over the top? Everyone is staring at me." Isabelle looked just as uncomfortable. She pursed her lips and said coolly, "If I said I had nothing to do with this, would you believe me?" As they both stood there, baffled, Lester got out of the driver's seat of the lead car. He gave him a smile from across the driveway, then turned and waved his hand. In the next second, All the bodyguards bowed in unison and shouted, "Welcome home, Mr. Yeager." Leo's jaw dropped. His eyes were as wide as saucers. Holy crap, that one sentence told him everything. This whole ridiculous display was 100% Lester's doing. He was living out the cheesy soap opera meme in real life. Lester, thoroughly pleased with the performance, gave a slight nod and strode over to them. "Miss Isabelle, Mr. Yeager. Not bad, right?" Leo's mouth twitched. "Lester, I was just leaving the hospital. Why the massive production? Did you see all the people recording this on their phones? I'll be trending on TikTok within the hour." "Exactly. Lester, you did all this without even telling me," Isabelle added, pouting. Seeing their reluctance, Lester gave a placating smile. This was actually Mr. Thornton's idea. First, to lift Mr. Yeager's spirits. Second, he hired a special events and public relations team for this. The goal is to make you go viral on TikTok. He said that with ChatterT's new investment, Starfall Media is already making waves in the industry. But that's just within the industry. The general public doesn't know yet. By making you famous in this eye-catching way, people will naturally get curious and look you up. It'll drive a huge wave of traffic to Starfall Media. Leo frowned, analyzing the strategy. "I know Mr. Thornton means well, but this could go one of two ways. One is what he intends. I go viral in a weird way, and it generates publicity for Starfall. The other is that I go viral for being an ostentatious jerk, and it brings negative attention to the company. Not to worry, Mr. Yeager. The two teams Mr. Thornton hired are the best in the country. They've handled campaigns and crisis management for A-list celebrities. They've already anticipated all of this. If public opinion starts to turn against you, the PR team has a plan ready to control and guide the narrative. You, of all people, should understand how that works." Leo considered this for a few seconds. He knew public opinion could be manipulated. Starfall's own departments did it all the time, buying bots and flooding comment sections to steer conversations whenever one of their influencers had a PR crisis. But that was on a small scale. A massive wave of negativity would be impossible for them to control. But a team that handled A-list celebrities? Their capabilities would be leagues beyond Starfall's. He had nothing to worry about. A new question popped into his head. "Lester, why is Mr. Thornton suddenly so invested in managing my public image?" "That's a question you'll have to ask him yourself, Mr. Yeager. I'm just carrying out his orders. As per Miss Isabelle's instructions, you'll be staying at the estate to recover. Mr. Thornton is also in Crestview for the time being and won't be returning to New York anytime soon. You'll be able to see him whenever you like." Leo's breath hitched. His world tilted on its axis for the second time that day. Wait, what? So, for the entire time he was staying at the Thornton estate, Isabelle's father was going to be there too? He stared at Isabelle. "You told me I was staying at the estate so the maids could look after me. You never said your dad was going to be there." Isabelle looked away, her eyes darting around nervously. She stared at her feet, kicking one against the other, and mumbled, "Well, you never asked if he would be." With a heart full of dread, Leo entered the Thornton estate. The first thing he saw was Richard Thornton, sitting on the living room sofa. Richard looked up and smiled warmly. "Leo, you're here. Come sit. Maria, please get a glass of warm water." "Ah, yes. Of course, Mr. Thornton," Leo said awkwardly. If he had known Isabelle's father would be here, he never would have agreed to stay. Living with your future father-in-law? Who wouldn't be terrified? Especially when said father-in-law was the chairman of a massive corporation who radiated an aura of power like a real-life king. Leo had barely sat down when a maid, Maria, brought him a glass of water, beaming. "Sir, your water." Then she added, with a huge, knowing smile, "It's good to have our son-in-law home." Son-in-law? Leo choked on the water he'd just sipped, nearly spraying it across the room. He'd been called that by the staff before, but that was when he and Isabelle were alone. Her father was sitting right there. Panicked, he shot a furtive glance at Richard, only to find him calmly taking a sip of his tea, his expression completely neutral. Leo let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. A small, secret thrill went through him. This was it. 100% confirmation. Isabelle's father completely approved of him. He truly saw him as his future son-in-law. Otherwise, a man as particular as Richard would never allow a member of his staff to use such a title before a wedding. "Leo, you must not have been able to shower properly in the hospital," Richard said conversationally. "If you'd like to wash up, I've arranged for a home care nurse to assist you. The bathroom is upstairs. There are a lot of rooms up there, you might not find it. I'll have Lester help you." Leo smiled. "It's okay, sir, I know where the bathroom is." Oh crap. The words were out before he could stop them. His heart went cold. He screwed up. He really wasn't supposed to know where the upstairs bathroom was. As expected, when Leo said he knew where the bathroom was, a strange expression flickered across Richard Thornton's face. The way he looked at Leo changed entirely. Isabelle, standing nearby, covered her mouth to stifle a laugh. She scurried into the kitchen, pretending to slice fruit, desperate to avoid getting caught in her father's crosshairs. Leo cleared his throat, his face burning. "Sir, let me explain." Richard held up a hand, cutting him off. "No need to explain. I should have known. Back in New York, you were bold enough to climb a tree and hide in Isabelle's closet. I shouldn't be surprised you found your way to the estate while I was gone." Leo was so embarrassed he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Thankfully, Richard didn't dwell on it. His expression turned serious. "Tion, the CEO of Chatter Tea, helped Starfall a great deal while you were unconscious. I also heard about you forcing out the co-founder." He paused, his gaze sharp. "You do realize that in a startup, kicking out a founder is a cardinal sin, don't you?" "I do, sir. But he's Sharon's nephew. For Isabelle's sake, I had to do it, even if it comes back to bite me later. And even if he wasn't related to Sharon, I would have done the same thing. I can't leave any potential threats around Isabelle, not even if it means everyone despises me for it." Richard let out a soft chuckle. "You misunderstand. I know he's Sharon's nephew, which is why, despite you breaking a major taboo, I support your decision. You did the right thing. That's why I brought in one of the country's top PR and event planning teams. I want to build a wave of positive press for you and Starfall Media. So when Sharon's nephew tries to use this against you, you'll have enough public goodwill to weather the storm." He took a sip of tea. "Secondly, you need to repay Tion for her help with more than just words. This will maximize Starfall's potential. You don't have the resources to do that yet. So as Isabelle's father, I've decided to give you a hand. After all, we're going to be family. You'll be Isabelle's only support." "Only support?" Leo seized on the strange wording. He frowned, glancing carefully over his shoulder at Isabelle, who was still humming to herself in the kitchen. He lowered his voice. "Sir, what do you mean by that? Why would I be her only support? Aren't you here for her, too?" His voice dropped to a whisper. Do you know where Sharon is?" Richard sipped his tea again, a placid smile on his face. "If I knew where she was, I wouldn't be sitting here, calmly having a heart-to-heart with you. I'd be using every resource at my disposal to make her pay. I only say that because, while the distance between Isabelle and me has closed, I was absent for too much of her childhood. Deep down, she can't ever fully let me back in. But you have her complete trust. In the end, the only person she can truly rely on is you." As he said this, Richard's eyes were filled with an unmistakable envy. Leo couldn't shake the feeling that Isabelle's father wasn't telling him the whole truth. He found himself staring, rather impolitely, into the man's eyes for several seconds. But Richard Thornton was the chairman of a massive corporation. His face was an unreadable mask, his eyes as calm as a frozen lake. Leo could see nothing. "Understand, sir." For the next few days, Leo recovered at the Thornton estate. He didn't have to lift a finger. Maids and staff attended to everything. During the day, Isabelle went to her classes at CPI. Afterward, Lester would drive her back to the estate, and she and Leo would be inseparable. The only problem was her father's presence, which made it difficult for Leo to be too affectionate. One time, while Richard was upstairs retrieving something, they shared a quick, butterfly-like kiss in the living room. Richard saw the whole thing from the second-floor landing. Leo's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. Thankfully, after 3 days, Isabelle gave him permission to go into the Starfall office for 3 hours a day. He'd use the time she was in class to handle work, then meet her afterward to return to the estate together. As a result, Leo's office at Starfall Media and the back seat of Lester's car became their new favorite makeout spots. Meanwhile, the video of Leo leaving the hospital, flanked by Isabelle, greeted by Lester and a fleet of Maybachs filled with bodyguards, had gone viral. The PR team Richard hired had boosted it, and now the internet was buzzing with talk about Leo. The owner of Starfall Media, this year's hottest MCN, is only a college freshman. Are all college kids this incredible now? First Tion of Chatter Tea, now Leo Yeager Starfall. Did you know that viral accounts like Starfall Official, Just Another Fish, Angie's Vibes, and Pull Off Fish are all under Starfall Media? So is Starfall's Leo Yeager a self-made entrepreneur? Or is he just another trust fund kid playing business with a $100 million allowance? At the same time, internet sleuths dug up the story of Leo and Kevin's charity trip to the Black Fork region before Starfall had blown up. With some strategic guidance from the PR team, Leo's public image was suddenly solidified with several likable narratives. This afternoon, as Leo and his secretary, Aiden Kane, left the office building, Leo on a single crutch. They were swarmed by a mob of reporters. He was instantly the center of attention. Camera flashes strobed relentlessly, and the sound of shutters was a constant, clicking roar. "Mr. Yeager, is it true you're only a freshman in college? Mr. Yeager, did you bootstrap Starfall, or were you already wealthy before you started the company? Mr. Yeager, what's your response to the online rumors that you're a rich kid who was just messing around and accidentally created a viral media empire? Mr. Yeager, rumor has it your girlfriend is the daughter of Thornton Industries chairman. If you had to choose between the kingdom and the queen, which would you pick?" Leo had no intention of answering their questions, but that last one made him pause. He raised an eyebrow, leaned into the microphones, and smiled. "The queen, of course." A reporter, surprised, pushed forward. "Can you tell us why?" Leo's smile widened, his eyes full of genuine happiness. "Because only a kid has to choose. I'm taking both." He leaned in closer, his voice clear and confident. "My queen comes with her own kingdom." The video of Leo, surrounded by reporters outside the Starfall Media building, exploded online that night. His final 2 lines, in particular, were legendary. 3 days later, at Crestview Polytechnic Institute, room 415. "Because only a kid has to choose. I'm taking both. My queen comes with her own kingdom." Holy shit, dude, how does a person even think of a line that's slick? Why can't I think of stuff like that? Yeager is flexing so hard on me from 1,000 miles away that my head hurts. The guy gets stabbed and still finds a way to be the main character. Damn it, I never should have searched for that interview on TikTok. Rex Gao stared at the clip on his phone, his whole body trembling. His eyes were bloodshot. How could one man be so impossibly cool? He kept scrolling and landed on the video from the day Leo was discharged from the hospital. "Welcome home, Mr. Yeager." The chorus of bodyguards. The fleet of Maybachs. It was another critical hit. Rex slumped in his chair, his eyes vacant. The sheer, unadulterated flex. It was God tier. "All right, Rex, stop watching those," Felix said. "Any more, and Leo's gonna flex you to death through the screen. If you die in the dorm, Ned and I get your share of the rent for free, you know. Screw you. In your dreams." Rex shot back, then propped his head in his hands, sighing dramatically. "Man, since Leo got hurt, he hasn't been on campus in almost a month. I only see him at the office sometimes. The dorm just feels wrong without him. If you miss him that much, just go to the Thornton estate," Ned suggested. "He already told us in the group chat to come hang out whenever. Do you know how huge that place is? Bodyguards, maids. It's fancier than my house. And the worst part is, it all belongs to his girlfriend. The thought of him just lounging around in his girlfriend's mansion makes me want to grind my teeth into dust. If I show up there now, isn't that just like sticking my face out and begging that asshole to flex on me?" Felix grinned slyly. "There's a difference, my friend. A huge difference. This time, he'll get to flex on you in person. Never. I'm telling you, Felix, I will never let that bastard flex on me to my face ever again." The next second, the door to 415 burst open. Leo's voice drifted in, casual and cutting. "Hey, Rex, I heard you guys have to file a report with your advisor if you're off campus for more than 24 hours and get permission from the dean just to leave the city. Sucks for you. I'm about to head overseas for a business deal. I'll bring you back a souvenir. How about that?" Rex swiveled around, dumbfounded. He saw Leo leaning on a crutch, a wicked grin on his face. The slap of hypocrisy echoed in his mind. 1 second he was swearing he'd never get roasted in person again, and the next he was getting flash fried. Was there no justice in the world? No law? It was Felix who broke the silence. "Leo, what are you doing here? Are you all healed up?" Leo limped into the room. "I was worried you guys would miss me, so I figured I'd stop by before my trip. And what do you know, the second I walk in, I hear Sir Rex here pining for me. I'm touched, really." Rex was so thoroughly owned he couldn't speak. It took him a long moment to recover. "Leo, seriously, is Starfall that big now? You have to go abroad? You're an MCN? What kind of overseas business could you possibly have?" "It's not exactly business. I'm taking the tech team to learn. The MCN industry is more developed over there, so we can study their marketing and management styles. Starfall's got a lot of buzz right now, right? I want to seize the opportunity, get the team leveled up as fast as possible." "Then just send the tech team," Rex pressed. "You don't have to go with them, do you?" "No, there are a few things I need to handle personally." Leo didn't elaborate, instead pulling out a deck of cards. The 4 of them settled in for a long night of games, the laughter and friendly insults echoing until 2 or 3 in the morning. Finally, they collapsed into their respective beds. Sometime in the quiet darkness, someone brought up the hiking trip. A chill fell over the room. They were all still haunted by it, still unable to believe that Frank Bishop, the man they'd followed up the mountain, had been carrying a gun. It was like they'd unknowingly gone for a 20-mile walk with a tiger. No one mentioned Miles. It was an unspoken pact, a raw wound they were all careful not to touch for Leo's sake. They talked until the first light of dawn painted the window gray, then finally drifted into an exhausted sleep. "Ma'am, we'll be landing in 5 minutes. You can relax now. We're completely safe." Jonathan's voice was thick with relief as he spoke to Sharon Thornton beside him. 5 days ago, she had found a way out of the country. After Jonathan had repeatedly vetted the contacts and a route, they had taken the baby and followed the smuggler's path, crossing the border into a neighboring country before boarding a flight to their final destination in Europe. Sharon stroked the baby in her arms, her eyes soft. "Sweetheart, Mommy's taking you to see Daddy. Your daddy is very handsome, and he loves Mommy very much. I know he'll spoil you rotten when he meets you. Even though Mommy couldn't get you a huge inheritance, all the money I made over the years is in his account. It's more than enough to take care of our family of 4. She turned to Jonathan. "Jonathan, Victor said he'd send someone to pick us up at the airport. Keep an eye out." "Yes, ma'am." Soon, Sharon was holding the baby, and Jonathan was carrying their few bags as they exited the airport. But after searching the arrivals curb for several minutes, Jonathan couldn't see anyone who looked like they were waiting for them. He leaned in and whispered, "Ma'am, I don't think there's a car here for us." "Impossible. Look again. I messaged Victor. He would have sent someone. I'm telling you, ma'am, there's no one." Sharon's brow furrowed. She scanned the area, holding the baby tight. He was right. There was no one. She pulled out the burner phone she used to contact Victor Yu and dialed his number. It went straight to voicemail. Her expression shifted. After a moment of silence, she said, "Fine, let's just find a hotel. The baby needs to eat. Victor must be busy, and maybe his driver went to the wrong terminal. When I see him, I'll have him fire whoever was supposed to pick us up." "Yes, ma'am." They found a hotel and checked in. Sharon tried calling Victor several more times, but each call went unanswered. Finally, the phone was turned off completely. Turn off." Sharon froze, staring at the screen, her mind blank. Sharon's fingers clenched the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. In her arms, the baby let out a sudden cry, pulling her back from the brink of shock. Jonathan, seeing her face drain of all color, swallowed hard, unsure what to say. "No, it can't be," Sharon muttered, stumbling back to sit on the edge of the bed. Her expression was a chaotic mix of disbelief and dread. "Victor promised he'd wait for me and the baby. He promised he'd give us a home." She snatched the phone, frantically scrolling through her message history with him. Every sweet promise now felt like a shard of glass twisting in her heart. The last message from 3 days ago was still there, glowing on the screen. "I'll be waiting for you." Jonathan couldn't bear it. He knelt beside her. "Ma'am, maybe something happened to Mr. You? Or maybe he's just really busy." Sharon laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Something happened? What could have possibly happened? Busy? What could he possibly be busy with that's more important than me and his child?" She shot to her feet, pacing the room with the baby in her arms. "No, I have to contact him now. We don't have much money with us. We can't last long here." She tried calling again and again. Each time, she was met with the same cold, automated message. The user's phone was off. Her composure finally shattered. She hurled the phone against the wall, and it exploded into pieces. The baby, startled, began to wail, his cries mingling with her suppressed sobs, filling the small hotel room with an suffocating air of despair. Jonathan rushed to steady her as she swayed. "Ma'am, please calm down." "Calm down? How can I calm down?" She shoved his hand away, her voice rising with fury. "Jonathan, you stay here with the baby. I'm going to find him myself. I want to see with my own eyes what he's so busy with that he can just abandon his child and me." Her voice was laced with venom. "Has Victor forgotten that every cent he has, every business connection, every contact, it all came from me from all those years I spent by Richard Thornton's side? I'm going to make him remember that I, Sharon Thornton, and my child are more important than anything else he has." She threw on her coat and started for the door. "Ma'am, let me come with you," Jonathan pleaded. "We don't know this country. I'm worried something will happen." "What could happen to me here? No one's hunting me here. I'll be fine. I'll be back soon. Take care of the baby. Once I find Victor, I'll arrange a place for you to live and make sure you're taken care of. Don't worry, your compensation will be just as good here as it was back home." "Ma'am, I don't care about the compensation. I'm worried about you. I'll be fine. Just watch the baby." With that, she was gone, leaving Jonathan alone with the crying child. He let out a heavy sigh. A terrible suspicion had already begun to form in his own mind. His boss had always been so brilliant, so calculating. How could she not see it? Perhaps, he thought, she simply refused to. For so many years, Victor, you had been her only reason for living. 2 hours later, at 9:30 at night, a taxi dropped Sharon off at the address she remembered Victor giving her for his company. She paid the driver, but as she went to get out, he held out his hand again. Her brow furrowed. The fare was $40, wasn't it? $100. You're ripping me off. It wasn't a long ride. $40 was already generous. And you want $100? Normally, Sharon wouldn't have bothered arguing. But the driver's blatant extortion ignited the fury that was already simmering inside her. Back home, she would have had Jonathan investigate this man's entire life and ruin him. A driver's hardship was none of her damn business. The driver's face remained impassive. He just held out his hand. 100. This time, after he spoke, he hit the button for the central locks. His gaze shifted, his eyes now crawling over her chest with a predatory gleam. A knot of fear tightened in her stomach. She'd heard stories about how dangerous this country could be. It wasn't worth risking her safety over a few dollars. Besides, she would see Victor soon. She silently promised herself she would have Victor hunt this man down. Since becoming Mrs. Thornton, no one had ever treated her with such disrespect. Here, she threw a $100 bill at him, slammed the door, and got out. The driver leaned out the window and shouted a string of vile obscenities at her. Sharon's face went pale, then red. A wave of humiliation washed over her. She swore that when she saw Victor, she would unleash all of her rage on him. If it weren't for him, she would never have suffered such an indignity. The anger propelled her through the front doors of the office building. "I'm looking for Victor, you," she snapped at the receptionist in English, her tone carrying the same authority she'd wielded as a top executive. The receptionist glanced up, bored. "Who are you? Do you have an appointment?" Sharon, already on a hair trigger, exploded. It was the same condescending line she'd had her own assistants use on countless others. "I'm Victor Yu's wife. My name is Sharon. I'm here with the child. Now get him down here to see me. This company, your salary, everything in this building was paid for by me. Now, get him down here right now." The receptionist gave her a strange, pitying look, laced with contempt. "Are you kidding me? You're the boss's wife?" "The boss just left with his wife for the day. I'm not blind." Sharon's eyes widened in disbelief. She stared blankly at the young woman behind the desk. Sharon's mind went completely blank. A loud ringing filled her ears like a swarm of angry bees. She staggered back a step, grabbing a nearby table to steady herself. Her lips trembled as she repeated, What did you say? Say that again." The receptionist rolled her eyes, her fingers clacking on her keyboard. "I said the boss just left with his wife. I've worked here for a year, and his wife comes by all the time to pick him up. If you were his wife, how come I've never seen you before?" Her tone was dripping with sarcasm. "Look, you should probably just go. Stop making up stories for sympathy." "Impossible," Sharon shrieked, her nails digging into her palms. "Victor and I have been together for years. We have a child. He personally promised me he would give me and our baby a home. And everything he has, I gave it to him. How could he do this to me? Security. Security, over here. Get this crazy woman out of here." The receptionist, seeing Sharon's hysteric state, immediately called for help. 2 guards grabbed Sharon by the arms and unceremoniously threw her out onto the street. She sat on the cold pavement for a long time, stunned, before the reality of the situation began to sink in. It had all happened so fast. Victor had a wife. Then who am I? What am I? Refusing to give up, Sharon pulled out her burner phone and called Victor again. It was still off. Hearing the automated voice that now sounded like a death sentence, her expression hardened. No matter what, she had to see him. She had to see the father of her child, face to face. The next morning, she waited. And sure enough, she saw Victor, whom she hadn't seen in months, get out of a car. She immediately ran toward him. "Victor!" He turned, a flash of surprise in his eyes when he saw her. He instinctively took a step back, frowning. "What are you doing here?" Sharon's eyes were bloodshot as she stared at him. "What do you mean? What am I doing here?" "I told you I was coming. You said you'd send someone to the airport, but nobody was there. I couldn't reach you. You know what happened to me back home? I barely got out with any money." "Victor, are you really so heartless that you'd just leave me and our baby stranded in a strange city?" "I've been busy lately. None of my staff were available." "Busy?" Sharon laughed, as if she'd heard the world's cruelest joke. She screamed, her voice raw. "Victor, how dare you say that to me? Busy? Why do you have to be busy? Everything you have now, you got it because of me, didn't you? If I hadn't spent all those years with that bastard Richard Thornton, how would you have the money to start this company? How would you be living this life?" She lunged forward, grabbing the front of his shirt. And another thing, the receptionist at your company told me you have another woman here. What the hell is that about, Victor? Say something. Let go. Victor shoved her hand away, glancing at her with contempt. Since you already know, why did you bother coming to find me? As you can see, I have a legal wife here. Is there a problem? Hearing him admit it, Sharon's face went deathly pale. She swallowed hard, struggling to speak. Are you kidding me? You're married here? Then what about me and our child? Where are we to you? All those years I sacrificed for you, what was it all for? Tell me. Victor snorted. It was for you. You did it willingly, what else could it be? As for the child, Sharon, don't try to guilt-trip me with that. You want to have that baby to control Richard Thornton, to help your own ambitions. Let's be honest, you don't really care about him, do you? What about our love? Are you insane? For someone who worked at a major corporation like Thornton Industries, you're hopelessly naive, aren't you? I was with you all those years because I wanted to use you to get the kind of wealth I could never get on my own. Is that not obvious? I figured as long as you didn't find out about my life here, I could keep playing along. But who knew a supposed mastermind like you couldn't even handle a couple of kids? Hiring a hitman. TSK, you're a wanted fugitive now. You're dangerous. Don't come looking for me again. He pushed her away, straightened his suit, and started toward his office. But Sharon grabbed him, wrapping her arms around his waist, her voice a heart-wrenching sob. Victor, for you, I wasted my entire youth on an old man I felt nothing for. Every dirty, underhanded thing I did it for you. How? How could you do this to me? It's not fair, Victor. Do you even have a heart? Do you? Victor stopped and crouched down, looking back at her with a mocking smile. Sharon, I've always wondered. You were a shark in the boardroom. Everyone who met you thought you were this invincible iron lady with no weaknesses. How is it that when it comes to me, you seem to have no common sense at all? Unfair to you? What about what you did to Richard Thornton and his daughter? Was that fair? They never did anything to you, and you nearly destroyed their family. You're a purely evil person, that you've ended up like this. If what you deserve, it's your karma. Hearing his words, Sharon couldn't believe her ears. Was this really the man she had loved for so many years? She choked back a sob. Victor, you call me evil, but what about you? To put it bluntly, you were my partner in crime. Victor spat on the ground and kicked her hard in the stomach. Sharon cried out in pain, curling up on the sidewalk, a cold sweat breaking out on her forehead. He felt no sympathy. So what if I'm evil too? He sneered. Your karma finally caught up to you. Mine's still a long way off. Now get lost and stop disgusting me. The pain in Sharon's abdomen was so intense she couldn't even stand up to chase after him. She sat on the foreign pavement and let out a desperate, broken wail. Why? Why? I gave up everything for what I thought was happiness, and it was all a lie. Sharon had always planned for the worst-case scenario in every situation. But she had never imagined that the man she had loved for so many years had only ever been using her. To Victor, she was just a tool. Now that she could no longer funnel him profits from Thornton Industries, now that she was a wanted fugitive, he had discarded her without a second thought. Not even a hint of hesitation. She cried until she could barely breathe, a crowd of onlookers gathering around her. But as her sobs subsided, a sliver of denial crept back in. It couldn't be like this. Victor must have loved her once. It was just that she had taken too long back home, and he had lost his patience. That's why he had decided to give up on her. Yes, that had to be it. At that thought, she screamed a raw, guttural sound. Isabelle Thornton, Leo Yeager, it's all your fault. If it wasn't for you, I would never have ended up like this. Why didn't you two just die? Why didn't you die? You're still not fully recovered, and you want to go overseas. If you insist on going, you have to take me with you. When Isabelle learned Leo was planning to leave the country for a few days, she immediately put her foot down. She crossed her arms, tilting her chin up in a way he hadn't seen in a long time. Leo smiled. I'm basically fine now. I don't even need the crutch anymore. Besides, I'll only be gone for a few days. I'll be back before you know it. No, you'll be too far away from me. This time, she was firm, absolutely refusing to back down. Leo hadn't told her sooner precisely because he was afraid of this reaction. Ever since the mountain incident, she needed to see him every day to feel at ease. He sighed, unsure what to do. Normally, if she was this insistent, he wouldn't hesitate for a second. He would take her with him in a heartbeat. She was always so considerate, never bothering him when he was busy with work. But this trip was different. Taking the tech team abroad to learn was just a cover story. He didn't actually care what they learned. If Isabelle came along and found out the real reason, things would get complicated. He pulled her into his arms, resting his chin on the top of her head, his voice a soft, gentle plea. Come on, be good. This is a really rushed trip. You'll be exhausted if you come. If you want to travel, I promise when I get back, we'll plan a proper vacation. Just the two of us. Okay. But she wouldn't yield. She pulled away from his embrace, her expression uncharacteristically serious. Leo, are you hiding something from me? A knot of anxiety tightened in his chest, but he kept his expression calm, gently pinching her cheek. It's just a business trip. What could I possibly be hiding? I just want you to rest here at home. I'm afraid you'll be bored if you come along. She wasn't buying it. Arms crossed. Her eyes were unwavering. If you don't take me, I'll just have Lester book me a ticket, and we'll follow you. Leo knew if he kept pushing back, he would only make her more suspicious. Defeated, he nodded. All right, fine. You can come. Good. Seeing her determined expression, Leo thought to himself that as long as he was careful to keep her away from certain things, she would never find out the true purpose of his trip. That evening, as Isabelle packed her suitcase, she said, Leo, after we get back, you should be able to go to classes again. I haven't had a class with you in so long. Haley said without you around, she can't get her shipping fix, and she's going into withdrawal. Leo grinned. That's easy to fix. While I get back, the next time we go to the Grove, you can sneakily invite her along. That should be enough to send her into a diabetic coma, don't you think? Leo, you're a terrible person, she said, pouting, but her eyes were sparkling with a hint of mischievous excitement. It did sound thrilling. Hearing her words, though, a wave of melancholy washed over Leo. This time, he really was going to be a terrible person. After a moment, he finally asked the question that had been weighing on him for days. Hey, how has Jesse been doing lately? I mean, after everything with Miles. At the mention of Miles and Jesse, a shadow passed over Isabelle's face. What happened with Miles hit her really hard. She told me that if it hadn't happened, she was planning on giving it a try with him after the hike. A heavy weight settled in Leo's chest. He clenched his fists, the knuckles white. The next morning, Leo and Isabelle woke up together, planning to have Lester drive them to the airport to meet up with the Starfall team. But the head butler rushed over to inform them that Lester had already taken her father to the airport at dawn. Oh, is Dad going back to New York? The butler shook his head. I'm sorry, miss. Mr. Thornton didn't share his travel plans with me. Lester is handling all the arrangements. I see. Well, just arrange another car for us. Isabelle nodded, linking her arm through Leo's. The news that her father had also left for the airport this morning made Leo frown. A faint suspicion formed in his mind, but he dismissed it as unlikely. He turned to the butler. Is business at Thornton Industries that busy right now? For him to rush off so early? I don't believe so, sir. Mr. Thornton delegated most of his responsibilities some time ago, which is why he's been able to stay in Crestview. It must be for some other matter. Leo nodded thoughtfully and didn't press further. Soon, a town car pulled up in front of the estate. The butler helped them with their luggage, and they settled into the back seat. As the car moved smoothly toward the airport, Isabelle rested her head on Leo's shoulder, humming softly at first, then chatting idly. Leo gazed at her perfect profile and couldn't help but smile. You know, if you told me from a year ago that the Ice Queen of Northwood High would one day be chattering away nonstop next to me, I never would have believed it. She tilted her chin up, a flash of her old cool demeanor returning. And yet, here I am, chattering away nonstop next to you. Photo posted. Leo and his girlfriend together. Leo, wake up. We're about to land. Isabelle gently pinched his nose, her voice a whisper in his ear. The warm breath on his earlobe sent a shiver down his spine. He snapped his eyes open, a smoldering fire in his gaze as he turned to look at her. Isabelle jumped, startled. She'd only ever seen that look when he was about to get handsy. She instinctively crossed her arms over her chest, pouting. We're still on the plane? Leo didn't say a word, just kept staring. Under his intense, predatory gaze, her cool composure melted, and a blush crept up her cheeks. She felt as if she were standing naked before him. It was mortifying. Stop looking at me like that. Still, he said nothing. Now, she couldn't even meet his eyes. She bit her lip, looking down, and, after a long moment of hesitation, she mumbled, So, when we get to the hotel, should we go there quickly? But you're still not fully healed, what if? What if what? You little deviant. What is going on in that head of yours? How did my Ice Queen turn into this? Leo finally broke, his serious expression dissolving into a hearty laugh. Isabelle's face froze, then flushed a deep crimson as she realized he'd been faking it. She was both embarrassed and furious. Leo, how could you? Hey, you're the one who whispered in my ear. You know how sensitive my ears are. I do not. She stammered, turning her head away, tried to reclaim her cool demeanor. But her face, red enough to bleed, was a dead giveaway. After a few moments of fuming in silence, she huffed, Leo, You're a terrible person. Meanwhile, on another flight, Richard Thornton stared out the window at the clouds below. The plane was descending, and the buildings on the ground were coming into focus. His brow was furrowed in thought. Lester, sitting beside him, had been shifting uncomfortably for a while. Noticing his unease, Richard spoke. If you have something to say, just say it, Lester. You're too old to be bottling things up. When we get back, I'm arranging your retirement. You can drive Isabelle around when she needs you, and when she doesn't, you can come fishing with me. You're joking again, sir? I'm still perfectly healthy. Why would I retire? Then stop fidgeting and say what's on your mind. You've been like this the whole flight, and it's making me antsy. All right, it's just that. This is the first time in all these years that I've left for so long without informing Miss Isabelle. I'm worried. I'm worried she'll figure out we didn't go to New York for work, that we came overseas. You know, she inherited her mother's intelligence. She's so perceptive, she might put two and two together. Richard shook his head. She won't. It might seem strange to her that we left, but she won't connect it to anything else. I laid the groundwork before we left, told everyone I was meeting with the financial backers behind UL Investments. If Isabelle looks into it, that's all she'll find. She introduced UL to Thornton Industries with Leo, so she knows my personality. She'll assume I'm just being cautious and wanted to meet them in person. Besides, with Leo staying at the estate with her, her mind will be on him. What's that saying? Love makes you stupid. At that, Richard's lips curved into a faint smile, as if remembering his own days with his late wife, Catherine. But the smile quickly faded, replaced by a shadow of sorrow. He knew he didn't deserve to even think of her. Perhaps, decades from now, when he saw her in the next life, she wouldn't even speak to him. Lester, having worked for the family for so long, knew exactly what he was thinking. Don't be too hard on yourself, sir. You made mistakes in the past, but now you're willing to do anything to set things right for Miss Isabelle. I'm sure Mrs. Thornton would see that and forgive you. Huh. Richard sighed heavily. The plane was about to land. The sadness in his eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, grim determination. Enough of that. Lester, as soon as we land, contact our man here. Find out exactly where that woman, Sharon, is right now. She's been using my money and my resources to support that Victor you for years. His influence here can't be small. Getting to her, while she's under his protection, won't be easy. Understood, sir. Soon, the plane touched down. Leo held Isabelle's hand as they walked off the jet bridge with the Starfall tech team. Aiden and Kane follow behind them, pulling their suitcases. Boss, the private cars are waiting outside. Should we head to the hotel to check in, or we'll get something to eat first? Leo waved a hand toward Isabelle, who was clinging to his arm. Ask your boss's wife. Boss's wife. The word sent a jolt of pure joy through Isabelle. It was practically radiating from her sparkling eyes. She shot Leo a look that he understood perfectly. It clearly said, Leo, you're a good person. Aiden, quick on the uptake, turned to Isabelle. Ma'am, should we check in or eat first? Being called that out loud made Isabelle's eyes crinkle with happiness, like a contented kitten. But she maintained her cool facade, lifting her chin. Aiden, she said, her voice crisp and clear. First, we're going to find you a good person to date. Aiden. Ultimately, at Isabelle's decree, the convoy of cars headed straight for a restaurant. In the car, Leo stared out the window at the streets of a country he'd only ever heard about online, a place of supposed ultimate freedom. He found himself wondering, if it's so free and they don't ban guns, there must be a lot of gangs, right? A lot of underground connections? It must be pretty normal for someone to just die on the street, right? Leo, what are you thinking about? Huh? Oh, nothing. Just thinking about where I should take you, since it's our first time overseas together. He smiled at Isabelle, gently taking her hand. His original plan had been to contact the person Tion had arranged for him as soon as he landed. But with Isabelle here, his plans had changed. He couldn't move that quickly anymore. He had to act natural, get her settled in first. Isabelle tilted her head. Aren't you here for work? I can keep myself busy at the hotel. You don't have to change your schedule just because I'm here, but it's your first time abroad with me. I'd feel terrible if I spent the whole time working and ignoring you. It's okay. We'll have plenty of time in the future. We could travel again when you're not busy. Of course, if you have time after you're done with work, we can explore a bit. So, you'll really be okay on your own at the hotel. I will. Seeing the earnest look on her face, Leo nodded, though it felt like a betrayal. He pulled her into a tight hug, hiding his face from her view. Just as he'd thought, she would believe any lie he told, without a shred of suspicion. The more he realized this, the more the guilt gnawed at him. He had sworn he would never lie to her, and here he was, breaking that promise already. But he couldn't tell her the truth. He could only spin this lie, guiding her towards saying she'd be fine staying at the hotel. He silently apologized to her in his heart. If he didn't eliminate the threat of Sharon for good, he knew her vengeful nature. If she ever got another chance, she would stop at nothing to get her revenge. Leo couldn't guarantee he could be by Isabelle's side every second for the rest of his life. And even if he could, the mountain incident had taught him that it might not be enough. He had seen firsthand how terrifyingly unhinged that woman was. Only the dead could be trusted to stay down. After lunch, they arrived at the hotel. It was 10 in the morning. Even though they'd left in the morning and landed in the morning, due to the time difference, it was already evening back home. The sun was bright outside, but to get adjusted to the time zone, Isabelle took a quick shower and immediately fell into bed, her eyelids heavy. She urged Leo to hurry up and get some rest, too. Leo sat on the edge of the bed, tucking the covers around her. He stroked her hair and smiled. You sleep first. I need to go over the schedule with Aiden. I meant to do it on the way, but I was too busy talking to you, and then I fell asleep. I won't be long, an hour at most. Okay, then I'll sleep, but come back soon. Leo nodded, turned off the lights, and left the room. He had lied to her again. He didn't go find Aiden. The work arrangements had been settled before they even left. Besides, this trip had very little to do with work. Leo took the elevator down to the lobby and dialed the number Tion had given him. A few moments later, a black town car pulled up to the hotel entrance. Leo limped out and got inside. The car drove to a nearby coffee shop. Hello, boss. Your friend already contacted me. I'll be handling all of your affairs while you're here. Any requests you have, I can fulfill. Oh, hi. My name is... No. The man interrupted, his eyes wide as he slipped into his native English. Don't tell me any of your information. I don't want to know. Didn't your friend tell you? He warned. First warning. If it happens again, I will not accept your commission. So what should I call you? Leo asked, embarrassed. Tion had mentioned something about this, but he'd forgotten. It made sense, though. This kind of work wasn't exactly above board. Anonymity was crucial for both sides. You can call me Jax. I'll call you boss. Jax. The name sounded professional, anonymous. Leo felt a small sense of relief. He took a moment to compose himself. All right, Jax. I need to know where the woman, Sharon, is in this city right now. Has she already been taken in by Victor Yu? Jax's expression turned strange. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. Boss, the situation is a bit complicated. Based on the information your friend sent me about Sharon and this Victor Yu, I did a quick investigation. Victor Yu is a well-known, very wealthy entrepreneur here. So, after learning about their relationship, I assumed she would be living in the lap of luxury as soon as she arrived, just like she did back in your country. If that were the case, it would be very difficult to get to her. He never goes anywhere without bodyguards. Leo frowned. So you can't handle it. It's not that. Then there's no problem. When can we move forward with the plan? Boss, I don't really know how to explain it. To be honest, I'm a little confused myself. Leo didn't understand. What do you mean? How about this, boss? I'll take you to see for yourself. You'll understand then. Jack stood up. Come on, boss. Victor Yu's company isn't far from here. It's almost lunchtime. You'll be able to see Sharon with your own eyes. Leo followed Jax out of the coffee shop, his confusion mounting. He couldn't tell if it was a cultural barrier preventing Jax from explaining the situation, or if Sharon's circumstances were just that bizarre. He limped behind the larger man. At 6'1", Leo wasn't small, but Jax towered over him by half a head, his broad shoulders making Leo feel almost frail in comparison. There was a certain sense of security in walking behind him. As they walked, Leo noticed a distinct bulge at Jax's left hip. He drew a sharp breath. After the mountain incident, he was all too familiar with the shape of a gun. They walked for about 10 minutes before Jax turned onto another street, now intentionally positioning himself to shield Leo from view. Boss, we're almost there, Jax explained before Leo could ask. Stay on my inside. Make sure Sharon doesn't see you. Okay. 5 minutes later, Jax guided him into a camera shop. After a brief exchange with the owner, Jax led Leo to the large storefront window. All right, boss, he said in a low voice. Look across the street. Leo's gaze fell on the sleek, modern office building opposite them. The glass facade reflected the harsh sunlight, forcing him to squint. It wasn't long before the building's revolving doors began to spit out a stream of people in business attire. Leo's eyes scanned the crowd, searching. Finally, a handsome, middle-aged man emerged, flanked by two burly bodyguards who dictated his every step. Boss, the one with the bodyguards, that's Victor Yu, Jack said. That's Victor Yu. Leo raised an eyebrow. He had to admit, the man was good-looking and carried himself with an air of confidence. As Leo was sizing him up, a familiar figure suddenly darted out from nowhere. When he saw her face, Leo's eyes went wide. It was Sharon. She lunged toward Victor, but the bodyguards intercepted her before she could get close. She looked utterly ravaged. Her hair was a mess, and the poised, wealthy aura she once radiated was completely gone. Pinned by the bodyguards, she screamed, her eyes wild and red-rimmed. "Victor, you bastard! I supported you for all those years. I gave you the money to build this company, gave you every luxury, and when I'm a fugitive on the run for you, this is how you treat me? You just throw me away. What about our child? He's your own flesh and blood. Don't you have any feelings for him? I have no money left. Are you just going to let us die?" Victor snorted, adjusting his collar. "Sharon, you're a smart woman. You should know what my attitude toward you means by now. I've told you countless times, making a scene here is useless. I was with you all those years just to use you. Don't you get it yet? It was your own foolish decision to have that child. And you say he's my son, but why should I believe you? For all I know, he's some bastard you had with Richard Thornton. And even if he is mine, so what? You slept with Thornton for years. You might not be disgusted, but I am. Now get lost. If you come here again, I won't be so nice." With that, he gave a nod to his bodyguards. They grabbed Sharon's arms and heartlessly tossed her to the curb. Then, under their protection, Victor got into a waiting town car and was driven away. Sharon was left sobbing on the sidewalk. After a long while, she staggered to her feet and shuffled away. Leo was so shocked he couldn't speak. He finally understood why Jax had been unable to describe the situation. Logically, given their history, Victor should have been treating her like a queen. How had it come to this? And the woman who had just been screaming in the street, was that really the same Sharon Thornton who had once held Thornton Industries in the palm of her hand? He stood there, stunned, until Sharon had disappeared from view. What the hell is going on? Jax gave a wry smile. "I don't know either, boss. That's why I had to show you." Leo fell silent. From the looks of it, Victor had no intention of taking Sharon back. He was cutting her off completely. Was this her karma? If so, she deserved every bit of it. She had betrayed Isabelle's father and nearly killed Isabelle. She thought she could escape to a happy life with Victor, only to find out that her years of sacrifice meant nothing. She had never been anything more than a tool for his enrichment. Now that she was useless, he had thrown her away like trash. The thought made Leo let out a bitter laugh. Sharon getting what she deserved was one thing. "Boss," Jax asked, "should I still proceed with the original plan?" Leo considered it for a moment, then his plan changed. A cold light glinted in his eyes. Just killing her would be too quick. Leaving her like this completely broken. That's better. Let her live in misery. So, leave her alive, but break her limbs, boss? Jax asked tentatively. Leo didn't answer directly. He just said, "Do it today." Jax grinned. "Yes, boss. She'll be back here at 5 o'clock when he gets off work. You can come back and watch it happen yourself." Leo nodded and left the camera shop. He looked up at the sky and whispered to himself, "Miles, I'm about to get your revenge." 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Isabelle rubbed her eyes and sat up in bed. Leo was already dressed in a jacket, looking like he was about to head out. "Leo," she said, her voice still thick with sleep, "are you going to work already?" Yeah, something like that. I have to take care of something. It won't take long. The real work starts tomorrow." "Oh." Isabelle nodded, then padded over to him in her slippers, her voice soft. "Okay, I'm a little hungry. I was hoping we could eat together. I'll wait for you to come back then." "You don't have to. If you're hungry, I can have Aiden arrange for room service. You've been asleep since this morning. You must be starving." She shook her head, smiling. "I'll wait for you. You said you'd be back soon, right? You don't have to work tonight, so after dinner, we can go for a walk." "Well, okay." Leo nodded. Jax's work should be quick. He'd get confirmation that Sharon was taken care of, then come back and have dinner with Isabelle. He gave her a hug and left the room. He hailed a cab and went back to the camera shop from that morning, then called Jax. "Boss, I'm not coming over. It'll be about half an hour. You just watch from there. My guy's across the street from you, wearing blue. We don't need to meet afterward. Just wire the payment to my account." Jax hung up. Leo looked across the street and, sure enough, saw a man in a blue hoodie sitting on the curb. He looked like a vagrant. Leo narrowed his eyes and waited. On the second floor of the camera shop, in the cafe upstairs, Lester stood beside Richard Thornton. "Sir," he said quietly, "they called. They said once it's time, they'll arrange a car to cause an accident. We can see the whole thing from here." Seeing Sharon end up like this is quite satisfying," Richard said with a cold smile. "It makes sense that she and Victor ended up together. They're both ruthless schemers who will stop at nothing to get what they want." When he'd learned of Victor's treatment of Sharon, he'd been filled with a grim pleasure. He looked down at the bustling street below, already picturing Sharon's miserable end. He took a sip of his coffee, his eyes full of scorn. Sharon, oh Sharon, you plotted and schemed for years, only to end up as someone else's pawn, to be discarded when you were no longer useful. As the number of people on the street grew, employees began to stream out of the office building. Leo watched intently, his fists clenched, a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead. He knew Victor and Sharon would appear any second. Soon, flanked by his two bodyguards, Victor emerged from the building. At the same time, a figure rushed out from around the corner. But it wasn't Sharon. It was her driver, Jonathan. His face was a dark mask of fury. "Mister, you," he shouted. "After everything my boss has done for you over the years, you can't treat her like this. You must be Jonathan." Victor raised an eyebrow, signaling for his bodyguards to step in front of him. He knew Sharon had a driver named Jonathan, the same man who had arranged for Frank Bishop to go after Isabelle. Victor knew exactly how vindictive Sharon could be. If he pushed her too far, she might have this man destroy everything he'd built. "That's right. My boss saved my life. I won't let you do this to her." As he spoke, he pulled his hand from his pocket, revealing the cold, sharp gleam of a dagger. Victor laughed. "You? Just like this, out in the open? You think you're Superman? You think you can take on my bodyguards?" He waved a dismissive hand. "Get him." The two bodyguards cracked their knuckles and advanced on Jonathan, who stood his ground, dagger in hand, and met them head-on. Just as Victor pulled a cigarette from his pocket, preparing to enjoy the show, another figure burst from the shadows. It was Sharon, her hair wild, her face a mask of insanity. "Victor, you can't do this to me." In the camera shop, Leo's jaw dropped. Sharon was also holding a knife. Victor, caught completely off guard, instinctively raised a foot to kick her. But Sharon didn't even try to dodge. She lunged, plunging the knife deep into his calf. "Shit, Sharon, are you fucking crazy?" Blood gushed from the wound. Without hesitation, Sharon ripped the knife out and stabbed him again, this time in the abdomen, her voice a low, chilling snarl. "Victor, I did everything for you. Not only are you not grateful, you won't even give me and our child a way to live. And you can give it all back. Without me, what are you, Victor, you? What right do you have to betray me? What right? What right?" With every word, she stabbed him again. Victor, stunned by the assault, finally managed to kick her away. He stumbled toward the street, screaming for his bodyguards, but they were tangled up with Jonathan. He was almost across the road when Sharon caught up to him. At the same time, Leo saw the man in blue, Jax's operative, start moving toward them. Upstairs, Richard and Lester stared, shocked by the unexpected turn of events. They also saw a car speeding toward the intersection. But just as both parties thought their plans were about to succeed, Sharon launched herself at Victor one last time, driving the knife into his back. They both fell at the edge of a bus stop. As Sharon went down, she fell facing the camera shop. Her eyes met Leo's, and they widened in recognition. Leo, a city bus, unable to stop in time, slammed into them, its wheels rolling directly over their bodies. She never finished his name. Blood splattered across the pavement. Seeing the gruesome scene, Leo's eye twitched violently. Leo stood frozen, the screech of the bus's tires and the horrified screams of pedestrians echoing in his ears. The window reflected the carnage on the street, the bright red blood snaking through the cracks in the pavement. The mangled sight of Sharon and Victor was a brutal assault on his senses. He never would have imagined it would end like this. That before Jax's man could even make a move, Sharon and Victor would die together on a foreign street. In the distance, Jonathan, still fighting the two bodyguards, saw the scene and froze. In that moment of distraction, the bodyguards tackled him to the ground. Then they, too, saw what had happened to their boss and stood there stunned. The street erupted into chaos. People pulled out their phones to call the police, and the wail of sirens grew closer. The street erupted into chaos. People pulled out their phones to call the police, and the wail of sirens grew closer. Leo's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Jax. He answered mechanically. "Boss, there was a change of plans. My guy hadn't even moved yet." And Sharon, "I saw. So, about the payment. It's fine. I'll send you the full amount we agreed on," Leo said, his voice raspy, before hanging up. Looking at the bodies, he felt a complex mix of emotions, but overriding it all was a profound sense of release, as if a weight he'd been carrying for months had finally been lifted. He stared at the twisted shapes in the pool of blood and remembered the first time he'd seen Sharon, impeccably dressed in a designer suit, commanding the boardroom at Thornton Industries. It was impossible to reconcile that woman with the mangled remains on the asphalt. As police cars arrived and cordoned off the area, Leo slipped out of the camera shop to avoid any trouble and head back to the hotel. Things had gone sideways, but the outcome was what he wanted. And it had happened without him lifting a finger, without any risk. The two villains who had nearly destroyed the Thornton family were dead. It was a kind of brutal, satisfying justice. Leo. He heard a familiar voice and looked up, startled. Isabelle was standing a short distance away, wearing slippers. What are you doing here? He asked, shocked. I was so hungry, I decided to grab something to eat nearby. I had the cab drop me off here and heard the sirens. I was going to see what happened, but then I saw you. A sense of alarm shot through Leo. He couldn't believe the coincidence. He quickly grabbed her arm. Don't go over there. It was a car accident. Someone got run over. It's really gruesome. You don't want to see it. I'm done with my errand. Let's go get dinner. Oh, okay, then I don't want to look. I won't be able to eat, she said, immediately losing her curiosity. Leo breathed a sigh of relief and flagged down a taxi. If she had seen Sharon's body and then realized he was there alone, her sharp mind would have put the pieces together instantly. He couldn't let her know. The news of Sharon's death would reach her eventually, after the local police identified her and contacted the authorities back home. But it would just be a simple notification, devoid of the bloody details. The outcome was all she needed to know. As they got into the cab, Leo instinctively glanced back toward the camera shop. He saw two familiar figures standing at the entrance. His pupils contracted. It was Isabelle's father and Lester. At that exact moment, Richard Thornton seemed to feel his gaze and looked over. Their eyes met, and a silent, shocked understanding passed between them. In an instant, they both knew why the other was there. Leo pulled his head back into the car, his mind reeling. Leo, what are you looking at? Isabelle asked. Nothing. Let's go eat. He shook his head, pulling her close. He wouldn't tell her about her father being there, either. From this moment on, every threat to Isabelle Thornton was gone. 5 days later, Leo and Isabelle's plane landed smoothly at Crestview International Airport. They had just arrived back at the Thornton estate when Richard Thornton's car pulled up as well. Dad, you're back from New York? What coincidence, Leo. And I just got back from our trip to... Yes, Isabelle. What a coincidence, Richard replied, flustered. He glanced at Leo, who was also looking at him. They both quickly averted their eyes. Even later, when they were alone, neither Leo nor Richard ever mentioned what had happened that day overseas. But they both knew. They both knew exactly why the other had been there. As June arrived, the weather in Crestview grew hotter. Leo's injuries had fully healed, and he returned to his classes at CPI. The news of Sharon's death did eventually make its way back. The moment Isabelle heard it, her expression went numb. Then her eyes welled up with tears. She threw herself into Leo's arms, her voice choked with sobs. Leo, do you think Miles can see this? He definitely can. Kevin heard news, too. That day, he and Leo went to the cemetery where Miles's ashes were kept. They brought a spread of all his favorite foods and sat there, talking to him from dusk through sunset and deep into the night. Leo would never forget the sound of Miles crying in pain on the day he died. With that, the final loose ends were tied up. The investigation into Thornton Industries was closed, and all Frozen projects were released. The truth was clarified. Starfall Media's reputation skyrocketed, and it quickly became one of the top MCNs in the country. It was a Friday night. Leo stood under the girls' dormitory, waiting for Isabelle to come down. It was the last group dinner for the guys of room 415 and the girls of 311 before summer break. The next time they'd all be together, they'd be sophomores. As he peered up at the dorm entrance, a pair of soft hands suddenly covered his eyes. A familiar, sweet scent filled the air, and Isabelle's cheerful voice came from behind him. Guess who? Today's chapter is a single entry. I'm outlining the final plot points. The main story should wrap up in about a week. After the main story, there will be epilogues. A smile touched Leo's lips. He reached back, his hand closing over the small one that covered his eyes. He gently pulled it away and turned, enveloping the girl from next door in a warm hug. Who else would dare do this to the CEO of Starfall Media besides my favorite neighbor? Isabelle Thornton looked up at him, her eyes curving into happy crescents. What if it was some other girl? Are you really that confident? Of course I am, Leo chuckled. He then noticed Isabelle's roommates, Haley Xia, Zoe Chong, and Jessie Chiao, standing a short distance behind her. He gave them a nod and a smile, then took Isabelle's hand. Come on, Rex and the guys are already there. We should get going. Okay. The five of them arrived at the restaurant just in time to see Rex Gao walking out the front door. Rex, what are you doing out here? Leo asked, confused. Waiting for Nora, of course, Rex said. I was going to bring her with me, but she had to hit the showers after practice, so she told me to come on ahead. I was just worried she wouldn't find a private room, so I came down to meet her. Ah, got it. Well, we're heading up. You two hurry. We're just waiting on you. Leo waved them off and led Isabelle and her friends upstairs to their reserved room. A few minutes later, Rex walked in, hand in hand with Nora Chi. Once everyone was settled, they raised their glasses. Cheers! The clinking of glasses filled the room, and the atmosphere instantly became lively. Rex sighed dramatically. I can't believe freshman year is already over. It felt so slow at first, but looking back, it's like it all happened in the blink of an eye. Now we've got summer break, and honestly, I'm going to miss you guys. I really don't want to go home. Hearing this, Felix Fong pushed his glasses up his nose and shot Rex a look of disdain. You're not going to miss us. You're going to miss Nora. Once you're back home, you two are starting a 2-month long-distance relationship. Damn it, Felix, you talk too much. Shut up, called out. Rex's expression was a perfect picture of embarrassment. The rest of the table erupted in knowing hoots and laughter, and he looked so genuinely wronged he couldn't possibly argue with all of them. He let his face fall and dramatically threw himself into Nora's arms, looking for all the world like a pouting housewife. Nora just patted his back gently, a helpless, amused smile on her face as she looked at the others. The dinner party kicked in a high gear, fueled by the good-natured roasting of Rex Gao. They all laughed and joked, occasionally turning the conversation to Starfall Media, asking Leo for some industry gossip. The girls listened with wide-eyed fascination. Halfway through the meal, after a few drinks, Ned and Neo had an idea. Leo, let's play Truth or Dare. There are a bunch of new challenges trending online we could try. He didn't even finish his sentence. The entire room fell silent. Isabelle instinctively shifted closer to Leo, her hand finding his. The others all turned their gazes to Jessie Chiao. Jessie's expression had frozen, the smile wiped from her face. Ned blinked, the realization dawning on him. He immediately slapped himself across the face, his expression full of guilt. Oh God, I'm so sorry, Jessie. Sorry, Leo. I forgot about what happened. I didn't mean to bring it up. Just pretend I'm drunk. Jessie's eyes welled up, and her body trembled slightly. She sniffled, covering her mouth with her hand. After a few choked sobs, she suddenly stood up. I'm just going to the restroom, she said, her voice hoarse. Haley quickly got up too. Jessie, I'll come with you. I'm fine. With that, Jessie hurried out of the room. Haley hesitated for a moment before grabbing a pack of tissues and following her. Silence descended once more. It was Rex who finally broke it, scowling at Ned. Dude, what the hell? I'm a lightweight here, and even I'm not that wasted. Did you drink straight-up ethanol or something? He then turned to Leo. Leo, you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Leo shook his head and forced a smile, but the way he tilted his head back to stare at the ceiling gave him away. Even now, whenever anyone mentioned Miles or what had happened at the lodge, a sharp pain lanced through his heart. No one could ever be prepared to lose a friend you'd grown up with, to have them suddenly and permanently erased from your life. Leo had never known the warmth of a real family. Kevin and Miles were the only brothers he'd ever had. To say they were his family wasn't an exaggeration at all. Finally, Rex loudly changed the subject, and the heavy atmosphere began to lift. But for the rest of the night, Leo couldn't bring himself to smile. He just sat there, quietly drinking. Leo, slow down. Isabelle whispered beside him, her voice soft with concern. It was the first time she had ever told him to drink less. In the past, any opportunity to get him drunk was one she'd seize with both hands. But seeing the hollow look in his eyes now, she couldn't say it. All she felt was a deep, aching sympathy for the boy she loved. At 11 o'clock that night, Lester dropped Leo and Isabelle off at the Maplewood. As they got out, he saw Leo swaying on his feet, barely able to walk. Miss Thornton, let me help, Lester said, his voice laced with worry. Mr. Yeager is a heavy lift. It'll be difficult for you to get him upstairs alone. It's okay, Lester. I can manage. Isabelle shook her head, refusing his offer. She knew it would be a struggle, but on the ride home, she had seen the silent tears tracking down Leo's cheeks in the dim light of the car. She knew him too well. He wouldn't want anyone else to see him cry. Well, all right, miss. Please be careful. Don't fall. I will, Lester. You can go home now. She nodded, then wrapped an arm around Leo, taking on his weight as they staggered toward the apartment building. But she hadn't even made it halfway to their building before she was panting, her muscles burning. She couldn't go any further. Leo, you're so heavy, she whispered between gasps. She sighed, then summoned her remaining strength to guide him to a nearby park bench. Exhausted and sweating, she didn't even take a moment for herself. She carefully positioned his head in her lap, making sure he was comfortable. She'd barely had a chance to catch her breath when the boy lying on her lap suddenly wrapped his arms around her waist. Then he began to sob, loud and unrestrained. I didn't protect him, Belle, he cried, his voice thick with a grief that broke her heart. He shouldn't have died. He shouldn't have. Listening to his huge, wounded cries, Isabelle felt her own heart shatter. This was her invincible boy, the one who could face the whole world without flinching. But he could cry too. The warm summer wind carried the song of cicadas through the night. Leo's hot tears soaked the fabric of her skirt as he finally let out all the pain he had been holding in for so long. The buzzing of cicadas in July tore open the curtain on a sweltering summer. It was the 4th day of their vacation. Leo and Isabelle had been staying at the Maplewood, and they'd even had Lester bring Buttercream and Oscar over. The two of them, plus one cat and one dog, had settled into a comfortable routine. They'd sleep in until almost noon, cuddle for a while, then Leo would slowly get up to wash his face and go out to buy lunch. Isabelle, meanwhile, would stay lounged in bed, claiming it was too hot outside and she'd get a tan. After they ate, Leo would sometimes open his laptop to deal with work that had piled up at Starfall. If he had a meeting, he'd have to drive to the office, and on those occasions, Isabelle would insist on going with him. Not for any noble reason. She just loved walking into the company with him and hearing all the employees call her ma'am. She was convinced every single person at Starfall Media was a saint. If they weren't Leo's employees, she'd have tried to hire them all for Thornton Industries. The midday sun softened the asphalt, and heat shimmered up from the pavement. A sharp, piercing chirp suddenly erupted from a treetop in the Maplewoods courtyard, and then the whole grove of trees came alive. The chorus of cicadas rose and fell like boiling water, a wave of sound crashing over the hot ground. Even a stray cat napping in the bushes by trash can was startled, its ears perking up. The sound, wrapped in the sun's oppressive heat, seemed to seep into your pores, making you want to loosen your collar. Even breathing felt sticky and loud. Woof, woof, woof. Buttercream, however, didn't seem to mind the heat at all. She was happily tearing across the complex's lawn. Leo, carrying a bag of lunch for Isabelle, watched her with a weary sigh. Buttercream, time to go back, he called out, his voice limp. It's too hot out here. You're going to give your brother heat stroke, and your sister's waiting for her food. Woof, woof. Buttercream barked back, clearly unimpressed. Leo sighed again and dragged his tired body toward the patch of grass where she was playing. He wasn't sure why, but ever since he and Isabelle had started living together, they'd both become incredibly lazy, despite normally being so diligent. It had only been a few days, and he already felt too tired to even walk outside. Maybe it's just the heat, he muttered to himself as he finally reached the bushes. When he saw what Buttercream was doing, his eyes went wide. The bag of food dropped from his hand. Holy crap. Buttercream, what are you doing? Get up. If your sister finds out, she'll call on her bodyguards to have that mutt neutered, he whisper-yelled. Go on, get. Whose dog is this? Get off my dog. What the hell? He watched in horror as Buttercream was pinned to the ground by another golden retriever. His vision went dark for a second. If Isabelle saw this, she would lose her mind. But the two dogs completely ignored him, only seeming to get more enthusiastic. Leo's face darkened. This was just like that night Isabelle moved in next door with Marchang's girlfriend and that guy she was seeing before he went abroad. The more Leo yelled, the more into it they got. Finally, after a frantic effort, Leo managed to separate the two. He didn't dare linger outside a second longer, grabbing Buttercream's leash and rushing upstairs. He had just opened the door when Isabelle emerged from the bedroom in her pajamas, yawning. Seeing him, she patted over in her slippers and threw her arms around his waist. Leo, you're the best. Ahem. No problem. Leo felt a pang of guilt. He'd managed to break them up just in the nick of time. Otherwise, Buttercream might have been pregnant next month. He wondered, what do you get when you cross a Samoyed and a golden retriever? When Isabelle sat down at the table to eat, she noticed Leo didn't have anything in front of him. She tilted her head. Leo, why didn't you buy anything for yourself today? Didn't you notice I was back later than usual? I ate at the diner before coming back. It's too hot out. If I'd carried both meals home, I'd have lost my appetite by the time I got here. Isabelle blinked, looking a little sheepish. After you left, I fell back asleep. I didn't notice. Leo sighed. Just a few days of this, and they were both already this lazy. What would a whole summer of this do to them? Besides, he hadn't had any time to go to the gym. It was all output, no input. Who could handle that? Especially around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, when Isabelle would transform, quietly drawing the curtains and settling onto his lap. And then he couldn't help but get a little carried away. While Isabelle was eating, Leo tapped away at his phone. Hey, day after tomorrow, come to Orlando with me. We can leave Oscar and Buttercream with Lester. He can walk them for a few days. He's getting older. No need to have him flying back and forth between New York and Crestview with us. Orlando, Isabelle asked, her cheeks puffed out with food, looking adorable. Her voice was muffled. Do you have a business meeting there? Leo shook his head, smiling. No work. I already had Aiden move my schedule around. Then why are we going to Orlando? Leo shook his head, smiling. No work. I already had Aiden move my schedule around. Then why are we going to Orlando? You forgot. I promised I'd take you to Disney World. And I promised I'd take you to all the places in a big city you wanted to see as a kid, but never got the chance to. Isabelle's eyes lit up like a starry night. Before she'd even swallowed the food in her mouth, she lunged at Leo, nearly knocking him off his chair. Really? You remembered. Rice flew from her mouth and landed on his collar, but she was too excited to notice, practically dancing in her seat. Leo, I'm going to wear a dress to Disney World, and I need to buy Minnie Mouse ears. With a fond, exasperated sigh, Leo wiped a stray grain of rice from the corner of her mouth. You can wear a dress, and we'll buy the ears. But she suddenly bit his finger playfully, her eyes sparkling. If we're leaving the day after tomorrow, that means we have to go shopping for new clothes today and tomorrow. And I need to get a manicure. I want my nails to look like fireworks. Isabelle was practically vibrating with joy. She was acting just like any other girl in love, giddy and excited to be spoiled by her boyfriend. He thought back to the Isabelle of a year ago. Back then, she would have only dared to think these things, never say them out loud. Now, she could speak her mind freely. All that changed in just 1 year. Man, Leo thought to himself with a quiet sigh of wonder. More has happened in this 1 year than in the last decade of my life combined. It feels like I've lived a whole lifetime, been through countless storms, and still came out feeling young. 2 days later, Leo and Isabelle were on a flight to Orlando. Once they were settled in their seats, Leo couldn't help but mutter, when I was checking your suitcase, the agent looked like he was about to throw his back out, just lifting it onto the conveyor belt. What did you pack in there this time? It weighed a ton. Isabelle just blinked at him, then lifted her chin with a cool expression. Good stuff. Good stuff again. Last time you brought good stuff, I got drunk, and we didn't even use any of it. Leo gulped. He was starting to think it wasn't him being improper with her anymore. It seemed like she was the one being improper with him. As he was trying to figure out how to get her to behave in Orlando, he heard a familiar voice. Isabelle heard it too. Her brow furrowed, and she narrowed her eyes, peering toward the seats in front of them. Kelsey, so what company are we meeting with in Orlando? Infinity Media, obviously. They're the biggest agency there right now. I just hope I can pass the interview and get a contract. If I get signed, I think you should try too. You're way prettier than I am. These days, as long as you're good looking, the agency will package you and buy you traffic. Kelsey Kong smiled at Chloe Chun. They were in the same major, though Kelsey was going to be a senior. She'd heard that the internships the school set up paid practically nothing, maybe $3,000 a month, with barely a bump after being hired full-time. There was no room for growth. But TikTok was exploding, nearly as ubiquitous as texting. If you were even remotely attractive, you could sign with a media company and make money just by filming videos. Dancers had an even bigger advantage. So, Kelsey decided to try her luck with a few of the more well-known MCN agencies. She didn't dare approach the smaller ones for fear of being scammed, but the top-tier ones were also out of reach. She knew she didn't have what it took to get noticed by them. Her friend and underclassman, Chloe, happened to be going to Orlando for fun, so Kelsey and a few other girls trying out had booked the same flight. Chloe smiled. Kelsey, I thought all the really famous MCNs were in LA. Why aren't you trying out there? One of the other girls next to Kelsey gave a bitter laugh. Chloe, you're overestimating us. The MCNs in LA are the big leagues. They have dedicated talent scouts. If you don't already have a following and they don't reach out to you first, you've got zero chance walking in off the street. Kelsey nodded. Exactly. If we had that kind of pull, we wouldn't be looking at Infinity. We wouldn't even bother with LA. We'd just go straight to the hottest agency right here in Crestview, Starfall Media. Starfall Media? The name made Chloe's face change instantly. She knew perfectly well that the CEO of Starfall Media was Leo Yeager. She'd seen countless interviews with him online. The one where he'd looked straight into the camera and declared, "My queen builds her own damn castle." The one where he'd wrapped his arm around Isabelle Thornton in front of everyone and introduced her as his girlfriend. The memories made her want to cry. She couldn't believe that the boy she used to barely spare a glance for was now the head of such a massive company. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. How is that fair? When we were kids, he used to suck up to me just to get a decent meal. Since Kelsey and the other girls didn't know about her history with Leo, Chloe figured she could get away with it. She let out a soft huff. The CEO of Starfall Media, Leo Yeager, used to be my neighbor. He was always trying to get my attention, and he chased me all through high school. I just never said yes. In the end, he had to settle for his current girlfriend. She sighed theatrically. If I had known he'd become this successful, I might have given him a chance. Maybe even after all this time, he'd still be completely devoted to me. Kelsey and the others stared at her, stunned. Chloe, are you serious? You and Leo Yeager grew up together, and he chased you for that long. Of course. We both graduated from Northwood High. I even have a picture from our graduation party. Chloe pulled out her phone and showed them the photo. And there he was, a much younger, less polished Leo Yeager. Seeing their shocked expressions, Chloe felt a rush of triumph and continued her fabrication. Honestly, I bet he's still not over me. Girls, if you really want to get into Starfall Media, I could try reaching out to him. He'd probably still have a soft spot for his first love and give you a SH. Before she could finish, the man sitting right behind her couldn't take it anymore. He cleared his throat, his voice dripping with scorn. Excuse me, but did the doctor accidentally give you the epidural instead of your mom? Who chased you? Who's not over you? Do I even know you? Hearing Leo's voice, Chloe's body went rigid. Her face turned a shade of green that could curdle milk. No, it can't be. Not here. How could I run into Leo Yeager here? At the sound of Leo's voice, Chloe, Kelsey, and the other girls all whipped their head around. When they saw who had spoken, their eyes widened in disbelief. It was Leo Yeager, the CEO of Starfall Media. Just last night, they had all been huddled together watching one of his interviews. They knew that face all too well. They also knew what his girlfriend, Isabelle Thornton, looked like from that same interview. As their gazes shifted to the woman sitting next to him, they were stunned all over again. Oh my God, they had just been talking about Leo and Isabelle, and now the actual people were sitting right behind them. Once the initial shock wore off, they replayed what Leo had just said. Excuse me, but did the doctor accidentally give you the epidural instead of your mom? Who chased you? Who's not over you? Do I even know you? He was talking to Chloe, which meant he had never chased her, and they definitely weren't as close as she had claimed. Realizing this, Kelsey and the other girls shot Chloe looks of pure contempt and derision. So, she was just a liar. One of the girls with Kelsey mustered up the courage to speak to Leo. Mr. Yeager, you and your girlfriend. I assume you heard everything Chloe just said? Yeah, every word, Leo confirmed with a nod. So, was any of it true? The girl pressed. Of course not. We went to the same high school. That's it. As for the chasing, the close relationship, all made up. You could just ignore it. Leo's firm denial made them all turn to look at Chloe again, as if she were a clown. The weight of their stares was crushing. Chloe's face was beet red, and she was mortified beyond words. She never in a million years thought she'd get caught in a lie like this. And to make it worse, Isabelle was right there. Leo hadn't spared her an ounce of dignity, exposing her in front of everyone. Chloe suddenly had the urge to drop out of college. If Kelsey and the others told everyone at school about this, how could she ever show her face again? Just then, Isabelle, who had been sitting quietly beside Leo, elegantly tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. A faint, knowing smile played on her lips as her cool gaze swept over Chloe's pale face. Then, for everyone to see, she tightened her hand around Leo's. At that sight, Chloe's vision went black. She was so furious she almost passed out. She desperately tried to find something, anything, to do to distract from her humiliation, but Kelsey and the others were now openly sneering at her. All she could do was turn her burning face away and stare out the airplane window. Seeing Chloe so thoroughly defeated put Leo in a great mood. He glanced at Isabelle, a grin playing on his lips, and whispered so only she could hear, I've noticed you're always on your A game when it comes to Chloe. You always know exactly what to do or say to land the killing blow. I have no idea what you're talking about. Isabelle huffed, lifting her chin coolly. But the mischievous glint in her eyes and the triumphant little smirk gave her away. When it came to shutting down Chloe, Isabelle was undefeated. After they landed, a driver arranged by Lester was already waiting for them. Leo and Isabelle grabbed a bite to eat in the car before heading straight to Disney World. Even though it wasn't a major holiday, it was still summer break, and the park was packed. To ensure their safety, Lester had also arranged for 2 bodyguards to accompany them inside. Leo and Isabelle were wearing matching t-shirts they had bought the day before, followed by 2 tall men in black suits and sunglasses. The whole scene was more than a little surreal. They had barely entered the park before people started taking pictures of them. Most parkgoers weren't used to seeing private security in their daily lives and assumed Leo and Isabelle were some kind of famous TikTokers, with the bodyguards being part of a cosplay. But a few sharper-eyed visitors, the ones who spent a lot of time online, quickly recognized Leo. Wait, Is that Leo Yeager? The CEO of Starfall Media? Yeah, that's him. I just look him up on TikTok. I saw his girlfriend in an interview and thought she was pretty, but figured it was just makeup and filters. Seeing her in person. Man, I was so wrong. Seriously, his girlfriend's looks are on another level. She puts every influencer to shame. For real. I saw comments saying that 90% of these MCN bosses sleep with their female talent, but there's never been a single rumor about Leo. I thought he was just good at keeping secrets, but now I get it. With a girlfriend that beautiful, who needs anyone else? Mr. Yeager. Mr. Yeager, you and your girlfriend should totally start a couple's account and post your daily life. It would blow up. Leo raised an eyebrow as he overheard the chatter. A couple's account? Before he could give it much thought, Isabelle, who had clearly heard the suggestion as well, stopped in her tracks. She linked her arm through his and looked up, her beautiful eyes shimmering. Leo, she said, Disney World is full of good people too. Isabelle's sparkling gaze made Leo's heart skip a beat. He swallowed, then reached up to pinch her cheek. What? You really want to start a couple's account? I kind of do. You know, like those vloggers who document their lives. You wouldn't mind sharing your life with strangers like that? Isabelle hummed, then stood on her tiptoes to whisper in his ear. I just want to give Haley her shipping fix. I'm worried she'll go into withdrawal over the summer break. With that, she pulled out her phone, her eyes curving into happy crescents as she snuggled closer to him. Leo, get closer. Picture time. Leo couldn't help but laugh. This wasn't just for Haley. She wanted everyone to see how happy they were together, and she wanted to read all the comments from the good people of the internet. Not that he minded one bit. If you're going to be in a relationship, you might as well go all out. He leaned in, wrapping his arm around her shoulders as she snapped a selfie. After that, they spent the rest of the day exploring the park. When Isabelle saw the carousel, her eyes lit up. She grabbed Leo's hand and pulled him toward it, her skirt flying out behind her as she ran. The summer breeze ruffled her hair, and in that moment Leo thought that this, being led by the hand by her, was the best feeling in the world. His gaze drifted to a family of 3 walking nearby. The young parents held their small child's hands, the little one barely reaching their waists. They were all wearing matching family outfits and bunny ear headbands. It was a picture of pure, simple happiness. Leo's eyes lingered on them for a few extra seconds, a lump forming in his throat. Isabelle noticed his distraction and tugged on his hand. What are you looking at so intently? I was just thinking. Leo looked down, meeting her curious gaze. One day, we'll bring our kids here. The 3 of us in matching outfits, just like that family. He pointed toward them. Isabelle followed his finger, and her face flushed a deep shade of pink. She unconsciously scuffed the ground with the toe of her shoe, turning her head away. Who said I was going to have kids with you? But despite her words, the joy in her eyes was unmistakable, her eyelashes fluttering. Leo chuckled softly. He could just imagine what her inner monologue was saying right now. Leo is so naughty. He doesn't want to use the blue devils. He reached out and tucked a windswept strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers brushing against her hot earlobe. I'm just thinking ahead, he said with a soft smile. With our looks, our kid would have to be ridiculously cute, right? You're so slick, she huffed, but she didn't let go of his hand as she turned and ran toward the carousel entrance. Leo let her pull him along, the sound of her happy footsteps making a corner of his heart melt into a puddle. They took countless photos that day at Disney World, eventually enlisting their 2 bodyguards as photographers. The men were consummate professionals, practically lying on the ground to get the perfect angles for their boss and his girlfriend. The photos turned out spectacularly, and the smile never left Isabelle's face. Over the next few days, Leo took her to all the places she had dreamed of visiting as a child, but never had anyone to go with. The 2 bodyguards, whose security services had been largely unneeded, fully transitioned into the role of personal photographers, snapping one amazing photo after another. Leo later heard that for those few days of work, the bodyguards had earned what would normally take them 2 or 3 months to make. Isabelle posted the photos, unedited, directly to her TikTok and her social media. When Haley Xia saw them, she nearly died. Haley Xia, Aia, Isabelle, Thornton, why did you and Leo go to so many places without me? I take way better pictures than your bodyguards. Haley Xia, this was prime shipping material. Why couldn't you take me so I could witness it in person? Haley Xia, and you started a couple's TikTok? Make me the admin. I need to see the photos and videos first. Don't make me beg. Besides Haley, their other friends flooded the comments with well wishes and heart emojis. And on TikTok, the response was explosive. In less than a week, Isabelle's account gained nearly 3 million followers. The growth was so staggering, even Leo was stunned. None of Starfall Media's signed talents had ever grown that fast, not even with hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad spend. And Isabelle had just been posting casually. Curious, Leo borrowed her phone to check out the comment section and see who exactly their audience was. Leo scrolled through the comments, a grin spreading across his face. The top voted ones were all variations of the same giddy theme. OMG, this is straight out of a romance novel. The handsome CEO of a hot new company and a gorgeous, super rich heiress. You couldn't even write this stuff. The last high-profile young couple this perfect was Tion, the chairman of Chatter Tea, and Nina Yi, the founder of A Taste of Summer Bakery. Wait, if I remember right, Mr. Xia and Ms. Yi are both from Crestview, right? There's definitely something in the water there. Many users were calling them the pinnacle of modern romance, and were already begging for daily vlogs. Some were even asking Leo to privately tell Tion to start his own account with Nina Yi. Reading the comments, Leo's eyes narrowed. He instantly understood why the account had blown up so quickly. It was the same principle his father-in-law, Richard Thornton, had used when he'd hired a team to build Leo's public persona to boost Starfall Media. But this was different. This had happened organically. The combination was just too potent. Leo, the head of the trendiest MCN agency in the country. Isabelle, the daughter of the chairman of the nationally recognized Thornton Industries. Plus, they were both stunningly attractive and still in college. That stack of attributes was unique. There wasn't another couple in the country with that specific mix of status, wealth, and looks. And even if there were, they weren't broadcasting their lives on TikTok. Isabelle's account had become the sole occupant of a brand new niche, and all the traffic was flowing directly to it. The growth rate was insane. Leo thought, this is a whole new lane. The public loves seeing the human side of high-profile figures. If a new CEO like me can get this much attention, what would happen if one of the titans from the Fortune 500 started a TikTok account? They could gain 10 million followers overnight. He was floored by the potential. If the CEO of a company like Apple or Ford joined the platform and adopted a down-to-earth persona, the public would eat it up. It would be far more effective than a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign. With this new idea buzzing in his mind, Leo immediately sent a message to Aiden Kane, telling him to schedule a meeting with the relevant departments at Starfall for when he got back from Orlando. Of course, the big-name CEOs would never sign with an MCN like his. But washed-up celebrities from hit movies? If Starfall could sign them, craft a new persona, and guide the narrative, they could pioneer an entirely new market. Leo and Isabelle spent the better part of a month in and around the city. During that time, Richard Thornton took Leo to several exclusive parties and events that he otherwise wouldn't have been invited to, introducing him to a host of industry leaders. At one of these events, he coincidentally ran into Rex Gau's father, Harrison Gau. Harrison made good on his previous promise, introducing Leo to several influential members of the Appalachian Mining Consortium. After that, Leo attended a few dinners at Tion's invitation. In just 2 short months of summer break, Leo Yeager's name was suddenly buzzing in the business circles of both New York and Crestview. CEOs were asking about him. To have the personal recommendation of Tion, the backing of Harrison Gau, and the tacit approval of Richard Thornton as his future son-in-law, that kind of social capital was immense. Forget Leo's own considerable skills. With those 3 men in his corner, he could have been a complete idiot and still made a fortune. But he wasn't. The media had already branded him a collegiate wunderkind, a title last held by Tion himself. The summer flew by. Soon enough, it was the morning of registration for their sophomore year. Inside room 1003 at the Maplewood. Leo, let's go again. No way. We have to get to campus to register. If we leave any later, we'll hit traffic. Isabelle was not pleased. No, I want to go one more time. Seriously, no. We've done this so many times already, I'm exhausted. We've been at this since last night without a break. I'm tired, and I feel like I'm about to collapse. You can nap when we get to campus. Just one more time, the last time. I promise I won't ask again after this. Ugh. If I knew it would be like this, I never would have started with you last night. Isabelle lifted her chin, her expression cool. Leo, a real man never says he can't. Fine, I get it. Let's go to the bedroom. Leo sighed in resignation, then tapped the accept button on his phone, starting another ranked match of Valiant Legends with Isabelle. Over the last few weeks, Isabelle had become a full-blown gaming addict. Every night, she would drag him into ranked matches. Because they had to register for classes today, she'd started their session at 9 o'clock last night and had kept them going without sleep until 9 this morning. Leo felt completely and utterly drained. Yo, Leo, haven't seen you all summer. What's with the dark circles? A word of advice, my friend, moderation. You and Isabelle can't be stuck together 24/7. You're the CEO of Starfall. You can't let your health slide. Rex Gao greeted him with a healthy dose of teasing as Leo dragged his suitcase into the dorm. Not like me. I had a quiet, respectable summer. Nora wanted to see me, but I had to politely decline. I made it clear she needs to stop being so thirsty for me. Leo rolled his eyes. Don't be an idiot. I got these dark circles playing Valiant Legends. I'm already at 30 stars in Challenger tier. Only 30 stars. That's it? I'm almost at 100. Leo just grinned. Oh, right. I forgot to mention, I play with Isabelle. She's my support every single game. I wonder what position Nora plays when you two queue up. Rex's breath caught in his throat. He was speechless. Damn it. After a whole summer, Leo was still just as good at roasting him. Before he could recover, Leo continued, feigning surprise. Wait, don't tell me. There are people who play games without their girlfriend. You son of a bitch. Rex finally exploded, his face flushed. Did you spend all summer practicing how to be an asshole? Felix, who had just finished making his bed, chuckled. Ah, that familiar sound. It felt weird not hearing you two go at it all summer. He then looked at Leo with a thoughtful expression. Leo, Starfall is getting bigger and bigger. And that lifestyle account you and Isabelle have is pulling millions of followers just from casual posts. You guys could probably make 100 grand a month off that account alone if you wanted to. It's amazing. 100 grand. Man, Ned chimed in with a sigh. The rich get richer, and the poor get poorer. I spent 2 months working as a security guard in my neighborhood, made 5 grand a month, and after expenses, I barely saved 4. Leo just smiled, not offering much of an opinion. It was true. In business, getting from 1 to 100 was a lot easier than getting from 0 to 1. Once you had that initial capital, making more money became exponentially simpler. His own journey from 0 to 1 might have seemed easy. He'd just taken a chunk of money and bought his way into Starfall. But his ability was undeniable. The company wouldn't be where it was today without him. But the hardest part of that journey wasn't the business strategy. It was the money itself. The survivor benefits from his parents' death that he'd had to fight his aunt for over a decade to get back. Only he knew the quiet desperation and sheer grit it took to get through those years. Just then, Rex cleared his throat, turning to Felix and Ned. So hey guys, you two want to come work with me this semester? I talked to my dad over the summer, and I'm going to start taking over some of the family business. I need a couple of trusted guys on my team. Starfall is huge now, he continued, glancing at Leo, and Leo didn't offer you guys jobs, not because he doesn't see you as brothers, but because that MCN stuff is super specialized. You're both business majors. It wouldn't be a good fit. But the part of the business I'm taking over is directly related to finance. Felix and Ned exchanged a look and agreed without a second's hesitation. They'd always known Rex's family had money, but they hadn't realized the scale of it. They just figured his constant claims of being a young master were a bit of an exaggeration. That was until they saw a media interview with Leo over the summer. Standing next to him was a man named Harrison Gao, a major player in the coal industry. Their jaws had dropped. They remembered seeing that name on the parent information forms they had to fill out at the beginning of freshman year. Rex wasn't just rich. He was the son of the head of the Appalachian Mining Consortium. This was a whole different level of wealth. The chance to work for him, even just as an assistant, meant they would be set for life. Leo was surprised too. Rex, what made you decide to jump into the family business so soon? I thought you wanted to wait until you were more confident. It was my dad's idea, Rex explained. He said you're doing such a great job with Starfall, and that you're on track to transition into a traditional media company within 3 years. He wanted me to learn from you. He said if I could pick up even half of your work ethic, I could run our family's business just as well as my older brothers, if not better. Leo was genuinely taken aback. He hadn't realized Harrison Gao thought so highly of him. Before he could respond, Rex scratched his head, a sheepish grin on his face. Plus, now that I'm with Nora, I don't want to keep asking my dad for money. I want to use my own money to date her. TCH. So you're whipped too? Leo smirked. He knew there had to be more to it than just following his dad's advice. With that, he finished making his bed, pulled on an eye mask, and collapsed onto his mattress to finally catch up on some sleep. With a full year of experience under their belts, Leo and his roommates had mastered the art of college life. They knew which classes were a joke, which professors never took attendance, and which 8 a.m.s were absolutely skippable. The 4 guys in room 415 had it all figured out. This semester, Rex was busy with his new responsibilities, bringing Felix and Ned along with him. Just like Leo, they spent nearly every moment outside of class working. The days of spontaneous gaming sessions and late-night drinking were few and far between. They were lucky if they could all grab a meal at a diner once a month, and even then, they'd stick to coffee, not wanting to jeopardize the next day's work. Isabelle, for her part, understood that this was a critical growth period for Starfall Media. She never bothered Leo when he was busy. Instead, whenever he had a big meeting, she would make a thermos of soup at home and deliver it to his office, waiting quietly for him to finish so they could share it together. The first semester of their sophomore year flew by in a flash. Starfall Media's roster of talent swelled to over 200 creators. 40 of them had more than 5 million followers, and 10 had surpassed the 10 million mark. Leo's idea of signing washed-up celebrities and giving them a relatability rebrand was also in motion. The company now had several former B and C-list actors under special contract. The results were modest, but it was a crucial stepping stone for Leo's long-term plan to transform Starfall from an MCN into a traditional media company. Through Harrison Gao, Leo was introduced to several well-respected directors. It turned out that coal tycoons had a long history of bankrolling film projects to get their mistresses roles, sometimes even financing entire movies tailored to a specific actress. Their connections in the film industry were extensive, and Leo leveraged every introduction to lay the groundwork for Starfall's future. He never believed he could make Starfall the undisputed #1 MCN, and anything less than that would always be overshadowed by traditional media giants. His goal was to merge the two models, to be a powerhouse in both new and old media. As short-form video continued its meteoric rise, he knew that top influencers would inevitably cross over into mainstream stardom. He spent the entire semester working tirelessly toward that goal. Before he knew it, the semester was over. It was January 2020. One day, Leo finally had a day off. Isabelle, dressed in her pajamas, curled up in his arms like a kitten. "Leo," she said, her voice cool but her eyes soft, "let's go see a movie. Knives Out came out a few weeks ago. Haley said it's really good. Is it a mystery?" "Yeah. We haven't been to the movies in forever. You've been so busy since the semester started." Though she didn't complain, he could see the hint of sadness in her eyes. He instinctively tightened his arms around her. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "The last few months were a critical phase for Starfall. I was being pulled in a million directions by partners and investors. I couldn't stop. I know I haven't been around much, but the major decisions are made, the direction is set. For now, until after the holidays, I'm all yours." "Okay." A light sparked in her eyes. Then, as if remembering something, she snuggled closer. "By the way, Dad is coming to Maplewood to have Christmas Eve dinner with us." "Your dad's coming? Shouldn't we go to the estate then? This place is small. He might not be comfortable." Isabelle looked displeased. "No, we're staying here. And Dad specifically said he wanted to come here. He's never been." Leo paused. It was true. Richard Thornton had never visited their apartment. He nodded. "All right. In that case, I'll cook Christmas Eve dinner this year. I'll be your sous chef," she said sweetly. Leo remembered last Christmas Eve when her father had grounded her and taken her phone. He had thought he'd be spending the night alone, but she had secretly booked a flight from New York just to be with him. The memory warmed him to his core. A whole year had passed. This year, they would be celebrating together with her father. He ruffled her hair. "All right, go get dressed. Let's go see that movie." "Okay. For the movie, do you want me to wear the black stockings or the white ones?" Leo blinked, his face turning red. "I'm not that kind of person." "Oh, really?" "Because last time, you touched my black stockings so much they started to pill." "Ahem. The black ones, then," he mumbled, giving up the act. Isabelle just huffed, a knowing smirk on her face. As she went to the bedroom to change, Leo pulled out his phone to book the tickets. But before he could, a call came in from Aiden Kane. "Boss, we have a problem. Something's happened. Boss, we have a problem. Something's happened." Hearing Aiden's words, Leo's brow furrowed, but the familiar jolt of panic that used to accompany such calls was gone. Ever since Sharon Thornton and Victor Yu had met their dramatic, theatrical end abroad, nothing really fazed him anymore. In his mind, as long as Isabelle was safe, nothing else was truly a problem. He remained silent for a beat, then responded, his voice steady. "Don't rush. What is it? Tell me slowly. Is it about the company?" "Not exactly." "Then what?" Aiden took a deep breath. "It's about Sean Shao. Him." A flicker of interest finally stirred in Leo. Didn't his little studio already go bankrupt? What kind of trouble is he causing now? After Sean had been kicked out of Starfall, Leo had heard from Ruby Yu that he'd cashed out his shares and started his own media studio. Since he was leaving a much larger, more successful company, the value of those shares was astronomical. His new venture started with a war chest 7 or 8 times larger than Starfall's initial capital. Tion himself had reportedly sunk $400,000 into it and used his old connections to raise several hundred thousand more in investments. The part that made Leo laugh was that Tion, now flush with cash, had immediately started poaching talent from other media companies, just as Leo had once asked Mark Jean to do. And his entire business model? A carbon copy of Starfall's early strategies. The very same bold, forward-thinking decisions that Tion had once vehemently opposed, he was now shamelessly replicating. It was the ultimate hypocrisy, a man at war with his own past self. The move had completely soured Ruby, Dawn, and Quinn on him for good. At first, Leo had treated the news as little more than gossip. He wasn't worried. Tion could copy the early moves, but he couldn't replicate the key factors that had led to Starfall's success. He didn't have Chattertee's investment, which had attracted a flood of other partners and brands. He didn't know about Leo's long-term strategy to pivot toward traditional media. All he could do was copy the past. But then Tion seemed to lose his mind. He started trying to sabotage Starfall's existing brand deals and even hired bots to spam the comment sections of Starfall's creators. When Leo found out, he had Aiden unleash the full force of the company to crush Tion's fledgling studio, Apex Media. Within a month, every potential partner had backed out. Tion burned through his money trying to stay afloat, but every move he made was immediately countered by Leo. In less than a semester, the fortune he'd made from his Starfall shares was gone. Leo had assumed that would be the end of it. But now, Aiden was telling him something else had happened. "Boss, I might have been a bit dramatic," Aiden said with a nervous chuckle. "Technically, it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's just, I thought it was the kind of thing you consider a big deal. Okay, I thought it was something serious. Next time, try not to be so jumpy." "Got it, boss. My mistake. Just spit it out. I'm about to take your boss's wife to a movie." Aiden cleared his throat. "Okay, so Ms. You was in a meeting with her content team, and I want to get her signature on a document. But she got a phone call and just abruptly ended the meeting and rushed out. It was rush hour, so she couldn't get a ride. She seemed really stressed, so I offered to drive her. And she was going to the police station. I went in with her, and that's when we found out Sean Xiao was in custody. According to the police, the reason he was arrested was because Aiden trailed off at the crucial moment. Are you kidding me?" Leo grumbled. "Who taught you to do cliffhangers? I'm docking your pay next time." "Sorry, boss. It's just, when I heard the reason, I was speechless. It's still hard to believe." Aiden took another breath, then dropped the bombshell. Sean Xiao was arrested because he went to the cemetery in the middle of the night with a shovel and dug up Sharon Thornton's urn. "He dug up Sharon's grave?" "Aiden, are you messing with me right now?" Leo was completely floored. The words didn't even seem to make sense. "It's the absolute truth, boss. I would never joke about something like this," Aiden said, his tone grim. "Not only did he dig up her grave, he scattered her ashes. A night watchman at the cemetery saw him and called the cops immediately. That's how he got caught." Aiden's certainty left Leo speechless, his mouth hanging open. After a few seconds of stunned silence, he let out a loud, "Holy shit." This was next-level insanity. He couldn't even come up with a proper roast for it. At the same time, a wave of dark satisfaction washed over him. So, Sharon Thornton couldn't even rest in peace. To have her own beloved nephew scatter her ashes to the wind. What a son of the year. "Did you ask why he did it?" Leo pressed. As far as he knew, Sean and Sharon had been close. Why would he suddenly do something so vindictive? "The police weren't supposed to tell me, but given Ms. Thornton's unique history with you, boss, I figured you'd want to know. I pulled a few strings and got the story," Aiden explained. "Sean blames you for the failure of Apex Media, and he believes the only reason you crushed him so ruthlessly was because of what Sharon did to you and Ms. Thornton. He thinks that if it weren't for her, you wouldn't have targeted him, that you wouldn't have been so relentless. So, in a fit of rage, he went and desecrated her grave." "Damn," Leo hissed, sucking in a breath. He couldn't help it. He started to laugh. Sean Xiao was so stupid, it was almost adorable. Sharon, for all her faults, had helped her nephew even after her own downfall. From her perspective as an aunt, she had never wronged him. If Sean despised her so much, he shouldn't have accepted her help after learning what she'd done to Leo and Isabelle. But he had, and now, because Leo had beaten him at his own game, he was redirecting all his rage at a dead woman. It was such absurd, twisted logic that Leo found it hilarious. But he couldn't deny he was pleased with the outcome. Sharon getting what she deserved, and Sean getting arrested. He had no sympathy for him. After all, Sean had chosen his side a long time ago. As for his current actions, the guy was just plain crazy. Noticing Leo's silence, Aiden asked, "Boss, are you still there?" "Yeah, so, what do you think?" I'm just wondering what Ruby U's reaction was when she heard the whole story at the station. Aiden coughed. Well, at first, she was planning to help him. But after she heard the details, her face went black. She turned around and walked out without a word. Didn't want anything more to do with him. Perfect. Leo slapped his thigh and let out a hearty laugh. Aiden, that was some high-quality gossip. You get a $1,000 bonus this month. After hanging up, Leo leaned back on the sofa, feeling an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. He couldn't wipe the grin off his face. Time flew, and soon it was Christmas Eve. Since Isabelle's father was coming to the Maplewood for dinner, Leo and Isabelle went to the supermarket that afternoon to stock up. Leo pushed the cart, which was already overflowing with vegetables, snacks, and drinks. While they were in the checkout line, he glanced down at his phone to reply to a few work messages. When he looked up again, his eyes narrowed. He could see something underneath, a large bag of chips. He moved the bag aside and felt his face, normally impervious to embarrassment, turn a deep shade of crimson. Tucked beneath the chips were 7 or 8 10-packs of Blue Devil's condoms. He grabbed Isabelle's arm just as she was trying to sneak away. "Are you out of your mind?" he hissed. "What are you planning to do with all these?" Isabelle blinked her big, beautiful eyes at him, the picture of innocence. "I didn't get them," she mumbled, pouting. "Oh, really? So I got them? Don't you dare tell me that while I was looking at my phone, some random person just happened to walk by, happened to slip, and happened to drop all of these into our cart." Isabelle lifted her chin coolly. "That's what happened. Like hell it did. No way. Why not? There are so many good people in the world. Anything is possible, right?" Leo stared at the nearly 100 condoms and instinctively put a hand on his lower back. He let out a long sigh, pulled out his phone again, and sent a text to Aiden Kane. "Renew my gym membership for another month. Find one that's open for the holidays. December 24th, 2020. Christmas Eve, 6:30 p.m. The sky outside had already turned a deep, inky black. Inside apartment 1003 of the Maplewood, every light was on, casting a warm glow. Leo, clad in an apron, was a whirlwind of motion in the kitchen, spatula in hand, as the rich aromas of a holiday feast filled the air. Isabelle, wearing a pair of fuzzy pink bunny slippers, stood nearby, occasionally poking at a spice jar or shifting a bowl. She looked like she was helping, but in reality, she was doing absolutely nothing. Yet every time Leo finished a dish, a proud, "Look what we accomplished" expression would bloom on her face. "I'll take that to the table." No, don't touch it," Leo insisted, gently steering her away from the hot pan. "I'll get it. I don't want you to burn yourself. Go on, go sit on the couch with Buttercream and Oscar and watch a movie. I've got this." He was terrified that Isabelle, who'd barely set foot in a kitchen her whole life, would get hurt. He even insisted on carrying every finished dish to the dining table himself. Isabelle pouted. "I might not be a great cook, but I have hands. I think I can handle carrying a plate." "Are you saying I'm useless, Leo?" "Of course not. It's just, your dad is coming over tonight. I don't want him to think that when you're with me, you have to do chores. You're his princess. If he saw you doing housework, he'd have my head. Dad's not here yet. He'll never know I helped," she retorted. Before Leo could reply, the doorbell rang. Ding dong, ding dong. Leo and Isabelle locked eyes, a shared wave of nervousness passing between them. Even though Leo had seen plenty of Richard Thornton since he and Isabelle had reconciled, this was different. This was the first time her father was coming to the Maplewood. The first time he was joining them for Christmas Eve dinner. The significance was monumental. "I'll get it," Isabelle announced. "No, I will." Leo took her arm, and without even taking off his apron, he walked to the door. He opened it and blinked in surprise. It wasn't just Isabelle's father. Standing beside him, a wide grin on his face, was Lester. Initially, Leo and Isabelle had wanted to invite Lester to join them. They had long since considered him family. After all, Lester had been the one to help them with dinner last Christmas Eve. Not inviting him this year felt wrong. But they worried Richard Thornton might not be comfortable with it, so they'd reluctantly decided against it, planning to visit him first thing Christmas morning instead. Seeing him there now, brought by Richard himself, left Leo stunned. After a few seconds, he broke into a smile and stepped aside. "Mr. Thornton, Lester, please come in. It's cold out there." Richard Thornton nodded and stepped inside. His eyes scanned the apartment's decor, a flicker of surprise crossing his features before melting into something softer, like understanding. Leo caught the subtle shift. He could guess what Richard was thinking. The man had probably expected something far more extravagant. Compared to the Thornton estate or their sprawling villa in New York, apartment 1003 was just a normal home. Richard had likely never imagined that his daughter, who he had pampered since birth, would prefer a simple apartment in a quiet complex over a massive mansion. The look of understanding, Leo figured, meant he was finally starting to see what truly made his daughter happy. Mr. Yeager, Lester said with a cheerful nod, stepping in a little more cautiously behind his boss. Hearing the voices, Isabelle peeked her head out of the kitchen. Her face lit up when she saw Lester. Dad, you brought Lester with you. I know how much you and Leo care about him, that you already see him as family, Richard said, the corners of his mouth lifting in a rare smile. You were hesitant to ask because of me, but you were mistaken. I've long considered him family, too, so I told him to come along for dinner. The heartfelt words made Lester blush. The older man scratched his head, suddenly shy. Miss Isabelle, Mr. Yeager, I hope I'm not intruding. Lester, what are you talking about? Of course you're not, Isabelle said, pursing her lips. She turned back to her father. Dad, you and Lester go sit on the couch for a bit. I'm helping Leo in the kitchen. Richard glanced at Leo in his apron, then at his daughter in a pristine white sweater without a single speck of oil on it. He let out a quiet sigh. All right, that's enough. Stop getting in Leo's way. I know perfectly well whether you can cook or not. Let Lester go help him. You and I are going to hang the wreath on the door. Isabelle opened her mouth to argue, but one look at her father's knowing gaze and the words died in her throat. Dad is so mean, she grumbled to herself, grabbing the Christmas wreath they hadn't had a chance to hang yet and following him out the door. With Lester's expert help, the pace in the kitchen picked up considerably. By 7:30 p.m., the four of them were seated around the dining table, the television glowing with a classic Christmas movie marathon. Steam rose from the platters of food, and looking at the scene, Leo felt a sense of dazed wonder. This warmth, this feeling of a family gathered together on Christmas Eve, it was the first time in his 20 years he had ever truly experienced it. He'd been invited to the Tion family's home before, but Harvey and Charlene were his godparents. It was close, but it lacked the profound sense of belonging that came with one's own family. But this was his. This was truly home. After everything he had been through, Leo couldn't hold it back any longer. His vision blurred. He opened a bottle of Mau Tai he'd bought for the occasion, stood, and poured a glass for Isabelle's father. Then he poured one for Lester, and finally, one for himself. Mr. Thornton Lester, he said, his voice thick with emotion. As the junior member here, this first glass is for you. Oh, Mr. Yeager, you can toast the boss, but not me. I couldn't possibly accept. Lester stammered, lowering his glass as a sign of respect. Leo just smiled. He was used to Lester's humble ways. After they'd all finished the first glass, Leo quickly refilled his own and raised it again, this time looking directly at Richard Thornton. Sir, thank you for all your help with me and with Starfall over this past year. And thank you for trusting me to take care of Isabelle. This glass is for you. Before he could finish, Richard's expression tightened, and he held up a hand. Wait, sir, is something wrong? Leo froze, his mind racing, trying to figure out what he'd done. But in the next second, Richard Thornton's stern face broke into a smile. His voice was warm and heavy with meaning. Leo, you just thanked me for trusting you with my daughter. So why are you still calling me, sir? Don't you think it's time for a change? Leo's eyes widened. Isabelle's did, too. They shot each other a look, a shared, brilliant spark of joy passing between them. Isabelle squeezed his arm, her grip tight and reassuring. Leo swallowed hard against the sudden lump in his throat. His eyes burned, hot and wet, as a wide, trembling grin spread across his face. Dad, Christmas Eve, 11:50 p.m. Leo, Richard Thornton, and Lester were all flushed, their voices booming through the apartment as they laughed and talked. Richard wobbled to his feet and slung an arm around Leo's shoulders. Come on, it's almost midnight. Let's go set off some fireworks. I've been so busy with work all these years. I can't remember the last time I did this. He turned to Lester. You brought them, right? Yes, sir. Right in the trunk. I'll go get them. Lester wasn't quite as unsteady as his boss, but his weathered face was as red as a tomato. As the youngest, Leo had drunk the most. The world was spinning, a dizzying, delightful blur. But he was happier than he'd ever been. He finally had a real family. Isabelle sighed softly, watching the three of them. She grabbed Leo's down jacket from the couch and gently draped it over his shoulders. It's cold outside, she murmured. Don't get sick. Leo hummed, gazing at her flawless face with a goofy, drunken smile. The four of them took the elevator downstairs. Lester retrieved a box of fireworks and firecrackers from the car and set them up in the small park in the center of the complex. Richard took the lighter from him and watched the second hand on his watch. 10, 9, 8. Isabelle was holding Leo steady, her body pressed close to his. The strong smell of alcohol clung to him, but she didn't mind at all. 3, 2, 1. As the hand hit 12, Richard lit the fuses and scrambled back toward them. But he'd had too much to drink, and his foot slipped, sending him tumbling to the ground. With no time to get up, he just sat there and clamped his hands over his ears. Whoosh, bang, bang, as the fireworks shot into the sky and exploded in brilliant colors. Isabelle saw her father, the man who for years had been the very picture of stern authority, sprawled comically on the ground. A laugh escaped her lips. Just then, Leo opened his wide jacket and pulled her inside, wrapping her in its warmth and holding her tight. Tucked against his chest, Isabelle was enveloped in the scent of cedarwood mixed with expensive liquor. The sharp crackle of firecrackers filled the air around them. She heard his voice, slurred but warm, rumbling against her ear. "You were so busy worrying about me, you forgot about yourself. You'll catch a cold dressed like that." She tilted her head up to look at him. His eyes were hazy with drink, but he was staring intently at the exploding fireworks, as if to shield her from any falling sparks. Isabelle felt her own eyes begin to burn, and it wasn't from the acrid smoke. It was his tenderness, this instinct to protect her, that had struck her right in the heart. "Leo," she said, tugging his sleeve. She had to raise her voice over the deafening pops and bangs. "Leo, Merry Christmas." He looked down at her. It seemed as if stardust had settled on her long lashes. A soft, drunken smile spread across his face. He reached up and playfully ruffled her hair, then gently smoothed it back down. His voice was as soft as cotton candy. "Merry Christmas, Isabelle." More fireworks bloomed against the night sky. Red, yellow, purple, painting the darkness in a riot of color. Richard finally managed to get to his feet, dusting off the seat of his pants without a shred of his usual chairman of the board dignity. "Getting old," he grumbled. "I'm getting old." Lester rushed over to steady him. "Sir, you're still a young man. I'll be old long before you are." Watching her father and Lester, who looked less like a boss and his employee and more like old friends, Isabelle stood on her toes. There, surrounded by the cascade of heavenly fire, she gently pressed her lips to the corner of his. The kiss was sweet with the taste of her strawberry lip balm and heady with the liquor on his breath. It melted into a warm, soft cloud in the 23-degree air. Neither of them closed their eyes. As they gazed at each other, the reflection in their eyes wasn't the brilliant fireworks. It was the face of the person they loved most in the world. In that shared instant, their hearts beat as one. Isabelle's eyelashes fluttered. Her lips curved into a smile as a single tear escaped the corner of her eye and traced a path down her cheek. Leo quickly reached up to wipe it away. "Why are you crying?" he asked softly. She pressed her lips together, her smile impossibly bright even through her tears. Beautiful eyes are supposed to cry happy tears. "Leo, Elio, wake up, you big lazy pig." Leo dimly heard Isabelle's voice and then felt his nose being pinched shut. A moment later, deprived of air, his eyes flew open. Isabelle was leaning over him, a playful grin on her face. Leo rubbed his temples, which were throbbing. He slowly sat up, the aftereffects of the previous night's celebration still pounding in his head. His memory was a fog after watching the fireworks downstairs. He didn't even remember how he'd gotten back to bed. "Where are, sir, and Lester?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Hearing that, Isabelle's smile vanished. She crossed her arms, her tone displeased. "Leo, did you forget everything as soon as you sobered up? You already changed what you call him yesterday. Why are you calling him sir again?" "All right. Not used to it yet." "Huh." Leo scratched the back of his head, embarrassed. He cleared his throat. "Where are Dad and Lester?" "I had another driver take them home last night. Dad said he didn't want to disturb us." Leo nodded. He sat on the bed for another moment, letting the world settle, before finally heading to the bathroom. As he was brushing his teeth, he noticed the time. It was already past 2 in the afternoon. No wonder she called him a lazy pig. Just as he finished, his phone started buzzing incessantly. He figured it was the group chat for work. It was Christmas Day. He had no intention of dealing with anything work-related. If it were a real emergency, Aiden would have called him directly. He wasn't in a rush. He wanted to get some food with Isabelle first. "Come on," he said, emerging from the bathroom. "I'm taking you out to eat." "Okay." Isabelle nodded. She didn't bother with makeup, her face fresh and bare as she took his hand. They went downstairs and headed for the complex entrance. But as they reached the main gate, the security guard stopped them. "Didn't you see the residence group chat?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "As of this morning, no one is allowed to leave or enter the complex." What? Leo exchanged a look with Isabelle and quickly pulled out his phone. He was shocked. The constant buzzing hadn't been work at all. It was hundreds of messages from his neighbors, all discussing the lockdown. Leo scrolled through the news articles and messages, his expression shifting. He grabbed Isabelle's hand. Come on, we're going back. It looks like we won't be able to go out for a while. Isabelle had seen the news on her own phone, and her face paled slightly. She asked in a small voice, are we going to be stuck at home? For a long time? Yeah, Leo said grimly. Looks like it. Isabelle lifted her chin, a strange, cool look in her eyes. I knew it, she said with chilling certainty. I knew buying all those Blue Devils was a good idea. Since Leo and Isabelle were confined to the Maplewood for the foreseeable future, all of Leo's work was conducted via video calls. A month later, during another company-wide video conference, Aiden Kane gasped, Boss, what happened to you? What with the dark circles? Leo rubbed his nose, looking guilty. Your boss's wife and I have been staying up late playing Valiant Legends. Haven't been sleeping well, so the dark circles are a little pronounced, but your cheeks look hollow, and your lips are pale. Boss, are you sure you're okay? I'm fine, really. Ahem. Anyway, let's get this meeting started. Leo quickly changed the subject, casting a furtive glance at Isabelle, who was curled up on the couch nearby. She was wearing a simple sundress, her long, pale legs tucked beneath her. She, on the other hand, was glowing. 2 years later, summer 2022, July 3 RD. Felix Fong and Ned Neo, both dressed in sharp tuxedos, sprinted out of Crestview International Airport. The moment they cleared the doors, they spotted Rex Gao's Rolls-Royce Cullinan waiting at the curb. Rex's hand, holding a cigar, emerged for the driver's side window. Spotting them, he quickly extinguished the cigar in the ashtray and waved frantically. Felix, Ned, over here. Get in, we're going to be late. Coming. Felix and Ned didn't waste a second, throwing open the doors and piling in. Rex stomped on the accelerator, and the luxury SUV shot away from the curb. From the back seat, Felix was still trying to process everything. Rex, what the hell is going on? Ned and I have been out of the country for less than 2 weeks. How did Leo and Isabelle suddenly decide to get married? There was no warning. Yeah, Ned chimed in. Or did he decide a long time ago and just didn't tell us? Rex pursed his lips. You guys are overthinking it. This was a sudden decision for him, too. I got a call from him 5 days ago, first thing in the morning. Said he and Isabelle were getting married and told me to get you two back here ASAP. That's insane. Felix trailed off, noticing that the lampposts lining the streets were all adorned with long, flowing white ribbons. He'd heard it was all Leo's doing. He wanted the entire city to know he was marrying Isabelle Thornton. At first, Felix had found it strange. Leo wasn't an ostentatious guy, so why such a public declaration? Then he found out why. Isabelle's mother had passed away when she was very young and was buried here in Crestview. To make sure she could see her daughter's wedding, Leo had spared no expense to have the entire city decorated. He wanted everyone to know that this was the day he and Isabelle were getting married. If the whole city was talking about it, surely her mother would see her daughter walking down the aisle. Rex shook his head at Felix's unspoken question. Don't ask me for details. I don't know either. We're about to meet up with the rest of the cars. We can ask Kevin when we get there. He's been with Leo this whole time. Rex drove like a man possessed. Half an hour later, before 8:00 M, the three of them arrived at the Maplewood. The streets around the complex were already lined with wedding cars, at least 30 of them, each one adorned with arrangements of red roses. All right, out, Rex ordered. We're the groomsmen. We ride up front. They need my car for the head of the procession. The three of them piled out and saw Kevin Tion across the street, busy directing traffic. They hurried over. Kevin let out a sigh of relief when he saw them. Man, you guys finally made it. I was worried you wouldn't get here in time. Where's Leo? Felix asked. He's the groom. Why isn't he here yet? Kevin checked his watch. He'll be here any minute. We're leaving to pick up the bride at 8 on the dot. Rex nodded, seizing the opportunity. Kevin, what's the real story? Why the sudden wedding? It's been less than a week from the announcement to the actual day. Normally, you'd have an engagement announcements. It takes at least 6 months, right? Oh well. Kevin hesitated, looking uncomfortable. I wasn't sure either, but Clara was a bridesmaid, and she went over to Isabelle's place last night to help out. She got the inside scoop from Haley Sia. Well, spit it out. Clara heard from Haley that Isabelle found out she was pregnant last week. Holy shit. Rex, Ned, and Felix all stare, their eyes wide. Now it all made sense. Rex was stunned for a long moment. Then he remembered something. While he was booking the venue, the event manager had told him that Leo had requested 2 single-person tables to be set up separately from the rest. Oh yeah, Kevin, he asked. What's the deal with the 2 separate tables at the reception? Before Kevin could answer, Lester appeared out of nowhere. He looked completely different from his usual chauffeur and butler self. Today he stood tall and proud, his back ramrod straight. He adjusted his tie, and the corner of his mouth quirked up in that familiar, cheesy soap opera villain way. "One of those tables," he declared with immense pride, "was set up for me by Miss Isabelle and Mr. Yeager." "No way, Lester, you're that high up the food chain." Rex was dumbfounded. "I'm not even getting my own table," he thought. Felix then asked, "So who's the other table for?" "That one's for Miles," Kevin said with a smile. "At this whole wedding, only Lester and Miles get a table to themselves. Not even me." Hearing it was for Miles, Rex and the others fell silent. They simply nodded, a shared, solemn understanding passing between them. Not a single one of them had an objection. Just then, a commotion rippled through the crowd. They all turned to see Leo emerge from the building. He was in his tuxedo, his eyes shining with an impatient eagerness to go and marry the love of his life. Before Rex could even offer his congratulations, Leo shot him a wicked grin. "Sorry, Rex. I'm getting married today. I'll be a husband. You're still just a kid playing house with your girlfriend, so maybe you should pipe down around me from now on." Rex's breath hitched. He felt tears welling up from the sheer force of that roast. He pointed a trembling finger at Leo. "You just wait. I'm going home and proposing to Nora tonight." "Oh, that's nice," Leo chirped, "but I'm getting married today." Having thoroughly flexed on his friend, Leo straightened his collar and threw out his arm with a flourish. "Let's move out. Time to get my bride." The Thornton estate. Isabelle, in a strapless, champagne-colored wedding gown, was surrounded by her bridesmaids, who were putting the final touches on her makeup. Alicia ran over, holding up her phone. Isabelle, your man is on his way. His motorcade is trending on Twitter. Hashtag Crestviews most baller wedding. Hashtag white ribbons and lampposts." Hearing this, Isabelle looked out the window. She saw the white ribbons fluttering in the morning breeze, and her eyes glistened. The boy she had loved for more than a decade was finally coming to marry her. Haley, as the maid of honor, took charge. She crossed her arms and addressed her troops: Zoe Chong, Jessie Chiao, Clara Shun, Nora Chi, and Cece Chung. "All right, ladies, when Leo gets here, we stick to the plan. We grill him with the questions and challenges we prepared. No going easy on him. The bridal party holds this line." A few minutes later, they heard the sound of popping champagne and a rising clamor from outside. The groom had arrived. Isabelle's hands unconsciously tightened on the fabric of her dress. Leo and his groomsmen were at the front door. Kevin, at the front of the pack, yelled, "Open up! The groom is here to get his bride." "Not so fast." Haley's voice came from behind the door. "Where are the envelopes?" "No cash, no entry." Kevin shoved the envelopes they'd prepared under the door. But Haley was just getting started. "Humph. You think a little cash is going to get you through? We bridesmaids have prepared a list of questions and tasks. You and Leo have to get them all right before we even think about opening this door." "TCH, I knew there'd be brain teasers." Rex shoved Kevin aside. "Move it, Jock. This isn't your arena. Let a professional handle this." He rolled up his sleeves, oozing confidence. The next second, Zoe's voice floated through the door. "What is 192,323 times 21,324? 3? You have 10 seconds. Get it wrong, and you do 10 push-ups. No calculators." Rex's jaw dropped. "What the hell kind of question is that? What does that have to do with getting married?" "Everything," came the reply. "If the groom's friends are a bunch of unreliable idiots who can't even answer a simple math problem, how can we entrust Isabelle to him?" In the end, Rex got the answer wrong 6 times in a row, forcing a fuming Kevin to do 60 push-ups. "Rex, you better get the next one right." Kevin growled through clenched teeth. "Ahem, Felix, you're up," Rex muttered, clutching his stomach. My stomach hurts." Leo watched his useless friends and chuckled. It looked like they were going to be stuck out here for at least half an hour. He was already thinking of a backup plan if brains and brawn both failed. Pure, shameless begging. But just then he caught a familiar, intoxicating scent. A moment later, he heard Isabelle's voice. "Leo, hurry up and carry me away." Leo and the groomsmen spun around in shock. Somehow, the bride had slipped out of the house. Leo stared at Isabelle in her breathtaking wedding gown, completely mesmerized. Then his gaze dropped to her feet, and his heart skipped a beat. She was wearing the white high heels he had given her so long ago. "I'll wear them, just not now." She had saved them for the most important day of her life. A lump formed in Leo's throat. Why did you come out?" Isabelle tilted her head, her eyes full of a deep, unwavering tenderness. "Because I don't want to wait another second. I want to marry you now. I want to call you my husband right now." The end.